Welcome everyone to the MiniMapCast. This is minimap.com.au's weekly games podcast, your favorite weekly games podcast. My name is Kerry Palmer, and joining me to help break the ice this week is Jeremy Bratatich.
Kerry, did you know that they're making new Star Wars?
Oh no, this is your icebreaker? This is what you told me you had prepped to talk about at the start of the show? This is a really good icebreaker that I'm not prepared for.
How? Okay, let's just. Do you want to do the Star Wars stuff now, or do you want to do the preamble and then we can quickly have like a Star Wars 10?
No. Let's do the Star Wars stuff now. I think I came into that with a little hesitancy, just because that's my mood with future Star Wars projects. It's not anything to do with you. I apologize.
Yeah. So they're making more Star Wars.
Surprise, shocker.
In a way, no, but also in a way, yes, only because I remember thinking about Star Wars and the shows that are coming out, because we have a very good idea of all the shows that have been coming out for a little while now. And I remember thinking,
like when they announced Andor like 4 years ago.
Yeah, but like we know we're not going to get another Book of Boba Fett season. We might get another Obi-Wan season, but like we know we're going to get more Mando. We know we're going to get the second half of Andor, but like, you know, there was always the shows that were got shown off, like Acolyte and stuff. Like we knew they were coming, but we had a slate and an idea. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know how movies fit into this.
Yeah, now that there's no longer the like trilogies to work around.
Yeah, or even the framework of like mainline Star Wars film spin-off, Wars film spin-off, that yearly thing that they had going for 5 years.
Yeah. That ended with Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, so there was a level of like, when do they do episode 10, or do they just do a bunch of side stuff? Because, you know, like, and there was all this other stuff, right? You know, there was Rian Johnson's trilogy that got announced, and he apparently is still working on it, according to everybody but anybody that's actually working on it. Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie is apparently still happening, according to Kathleen Kennedy the other day. There's a lot of Star Wars projects happening, but there's not a lot of actual movement on all these movies. Now that we've had 3 announced, there is the James Mangold written and directed one, set as the very first Jedi, set in an era that we know nothing about, prior to the High Republic, which is the oldest era that we know of currently. We have a movie that is meant to finish up all of the TV shows that Dave Filoni is running, and he is also directing this movie. Oh my god,
are they gonna Avengers those shows together?
I think. Look, I'm
no.
Okay. Here's my take on this. I'm glad that it's not another television show.
Right. All right.
But it's going to be the end to the Mandoverse, basically. Is a movie directed by Dave Filoni.
If it gets a theatrical release, like if it's been all of this like Disney Plus build up, and then it's a theatrical release that no one understands unless you've watched 20 other hours of Star Wars TV shows.
This is maybe my biggest issue with Dave Filoni as a creative, is that I was talking to a housemate about this last night, because I was like, how do we feel about new Star Wars? And he was like, I can't fucking believe it, right? Mm-hmm. And I was talking about Dave Filoni, and he says that he gives him the same vibes as George Lucas, that he's knowledgeable about the lore, but maybe not the best storyteller.
Right.
To which I said, yes, but I say here, just beyond the obscenities.
I was gonna say, I can already tell the tone of this discussion, and that you were just shitting on him.
I wasn't shitting on him. What I said is, I don't think he quite learned the right lessons from Lucas. Right lessons in brackets being contempt for my audience, which is very funny. I said, I wish Dave Filoni would stop writing seasons of television shows to fill out a Wikipedia page and write a season of television show to tell a story.
Yeah, that's a good point. I had the thought this week. I've only watched 1 episode of season 3 of Mandalorian, and the way I've seen headlines and you talk about on Twitter, and just people talk about it, how it's a whole Bo-Katan thing, and they're kind of shifting the focus a bit of who's what, and then also with all of these announcements, again, not really looking too much at many of them, but seeing headlines of, oh, the Ahsoka show is going to be a reunion for the Rebels cast, something like that. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, why did all of these shows need to honor Rebels and Clone Wars, the animated series? Why do all of them need to pull from that well? Like, I thought it was kind of cool when Ahsoka turned up in season 2 of Mandalorian. That was a cool episode.
Yeah.
She was there and then she was gone, whatever. And like the way Boba Fett came back was a bit funny or whatever. The blue bounty hunter guy for Boba Fett, he was interesting, but like
like visually, but like in terms of
but like, why do we keep going back?
Well, like it's even more than the Grand Inquisitor and Obi-Wan Kenobi is a Rebel season 1 villain, right? Like there's tons,
and like
of
Ahsoka's going after Thrawn, and
exactly the entire Ahsoka show is going to be the finale that Rebels never actually got because it got cancelled before it finished. Like I think there is an interesting story to tell with the Rebels characters. I think that it is weird that it has become this weird like legitimization of those old shows, like as if
you've given me a mouthpiece and I will tell you the good word of Rebels, this show I made.
Yeah. Or it's like we want to honor the fans who are fans of this show by allowing them to feel like they didn't waste their lives watching 8 seasons of a cartoon as adults. Which is like ridiculous because it's like, just let your show stand on its own.
Kind of like how they did. I mean, they kind of did that with the final season of Clone Wars, right? Where they did give it a send off.
But that was good because that was a final season of that show, right? That wasn't it was purpose built. It wasn't the live action new Star Wars that everyone's going to buy tickets to and then go and watch, which is like a bunch of people going, who is this? Like, why do I care about any of this?
Yeah.
And the thing that breaks my brain is that they continue to add stakes to characters' futures that we understand either exist or at least we understand who they are from their previous shows, right? Like the when the fucking Grand Inquisitor at the beginning of the Obi-Wan show gets stabbed in the chest by Reva.
Yeah.
Like, he's in Rebels, which follows Obi-Wan Kenobi, so we know he wasn't going to die. And so anybody that cared about the Grand Inquisitor isn't like, oh my God, he's going to die, because anyone who cared about the Grand Inquisitor saw him in Rebels. And anyone who didn't see him in Rebels is like, okay, this guy I just met got stabbed in the chest. Why do I care? Like, it is just a complete failure of storytelling. And so I think, look, Dave getting one movie to wrap up all of his children's stories, like, look, neat. I'm not going to be really here for that, but I think that I'm glad that it's not another fucking television show. But they're entering the same issue that Marvel is going to start entering very soon, is like, at what level do they introduce these characters from these shows into their movies? In what capacity do they roll? Ahsoka is the hardest probably to do, considering that like a lot of her character development happens very slowly over 6 seasons of an animated show from the mid 2010s.
Much earlier.
Oh, it's like 2007 until like 2015 or something.
That's mid 2000s.
Sure. But like, then the trailer says like outcast, rebel, Jedi as like the 3 things that she is. And like, I'm like, my nerd part of my brain is screaming at how much she is not a Jedi.
I was going to say, like, doesn't she, I haven't watched the show, but in the Book of Boba Fett, where there are Mandalorian episodes and she's in them, doesn't she say as much?
Yeah, her thing is that she leaves the Jedi Order. That's like her thing. In the middle of the Clone Wars, she leaves. She's like, this isn't working.
Disney are such bad custodians
of
this IP.
Terrible. But like, what fucks me up is that Dave made the Clone Wars. That's his show.
Yeah, maybe he didn't have. Maybe for the trailer though, they made someone put that in there. They still like, or so, it's got to say Jedi in it somewhere.
Sure, I guess, but surely he's gone reading. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. This is.
You're right. If he's as like nerdy and into it as we are, which it seems like he is.
Well, he's the one that anytime anyone gets anything wrong, he always like actuallys them and cites 3 sources because he's that he's that into that stuff.
So either he's faking it, or he is under pressure to not only honor his agenda but a few other people's.
Or like some lawyer at Disney, some accountant at Disney said to him like, you know, like we cannot say this, but we have a direct equation of how much more money something will make if you say the word Jedi.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
And the reason I said Disney are such bad stewards of this franchise is they're so afraid of doing anything different.
The only reason Andor works is because it got Spider-Verse, right? It was like that they weren't even they surely must have just not have been looking over there.
Basically, right? And it's like I guess it probably landed because it plays into the whole like, oh, the gap between 3 and 4 is really interesting kind of feel.
Yeah,
where it's like, oh,
we want to fill this out. Tony Gilroy, who worked on Rogue One, wants to do 8 hours worth of Rogue One-esque content. You'll see the Senate and you'll see Mon Mothma and the Disney execs go, ooh. Yeah. I'm sure all the Disney execs.
She's in the first one.
I'm sure the Disney execs like, ooh, Mon Mothma.
Or they're like, who's that? And someone's like, oh, she's in the first movie. And they're like, oh, people like the first movie.
Yeah. She's in the first movie and she's in Rogue One. And she'll be in Ahsoka. Like we've got what is it when like a composer works for like a studio only? It's like it's like a term for
residency.
Yeah. They've got like resident actors being the person who plays Mon Mothma.
Yeah, we need this person to play this Star Wars person. Just turn up occasionally.
Yeah.
Like Jimmy Smits.
Yeah, like Jimmy Smits or Forrest Whitaker. He's another one.
Yeah.
He's in there was something else that he was in that I've forgotten.
Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order?
I don't remember.
Do you think we see him in Survivor?
I could see him being in Survivor.
I think I'd be surprised.
I wouldn't.
It was such a big deal that he was in Fallen Order, and they basically showed you all of his scenes in the E3 footage.
Yeah, I know.
Look, because that's all they had him for.
Saw Gerrera is a really fucking interesting character, and it is such a shame how much they keep like doing a disservice to Saw Gerrera because he's really fucking cool.
I think Disney's afraid of him because he's a fucking extremist.
I know, yeah, but like he's never like, and yeah, I guess, right? I guess.
So they just hint at what he does and what he's about in Andor. And so you get the intensity, but no action.
Yeah,
he's a talking head for two scenes.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
He's great at it. He's so good at it.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. We should wrap this up.
Well, to wrap it up finally, the third movie being set after episode 9, Rey is back in movies.
Mm-hmm.
Rey is
great. Daisy Ridley's great.
Yeah, Daisy Ridley's great. She's going to rebuild the Jedi Order. Apparently, is what the point of the film is. This is kind
of the sequel everyone wanted to Return of the Jedi 30 years ago.
I guess. Does this interest you?
And they got it. Only in that it gives Daisy Ridley another chance. You know what I mean? Where if John Boyega hadn't been completely burned on the process.
I can't believe
to work on Star Wars.
Where Hayden Christensen in Daisy Ridley like 3 years after the last one. It's like
it's that film stunk. It stunk like bad poo.
It's the one thing everyone was saying about Obi-Wan is like I can't wait for Ewan McGregor to be back, and I can't wait for Hayden Christensen to be back. I didn't care what it's about.
20 years.
And it's like I want them to get another shot at maybe a script that's better. And you know what? The script in that show was not better, and they just had less to do in it. And the idea that we are already that with Daisy Ridley and she's like maybe pushing 30 is absolutely fucking hilarious to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's cool though because we're not dealing with like de-aging. We're not dealing with canon that is already told that we're trying to find the gaps in between. It's new runway. It's fresh. It's empty. it's time to go. What they'll do with it, I don't trust them really to do anything worthwhile. But it is a chance for them to do that. And I'm excited for that chance.
I just remembered that she's a Palpatine.
I was talking on Twitter today to someone about how I've only watched it that one time with you after we recorded the podcast one time. And I haven't watched it since. And every time you or someone else or something, I just see a detail of that movie, I almost inevitably have to put my head in my hands because I'm like, oh yeah, they did do that, didn't they? Shit.
Look, she'll have a yellow...
Oh man, yeah, that moment too.
She'll have a yellow lightsaber. It's a cool looking lightsaber. It looks like a stick from the first movie. She's a Palpatine and her last name is Skywalker. And she can do force electricity.
I think it's time to watch The Last Jedi again.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think that is always the time because I think that's just like.
But me having just watched Knives Out and Glass Onion recently, it's time for me to come in with like a Rian Johnson appreciation, like not just like, oh, I hear this director's good. There was one thing I pulled up because you mentioned Rian Johnson's trilogy. It says this is an article I saw on IGN. Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy is, quote, not actively in development. Unquote.
Yeah, like and that happened the moment he got that deal with Netflix where they're like, we'll give you $100 million to make as many Knives Out movies as you want.
Yeah.
And he said, all right, and then started to stop tweeting and started to just turn his tweets into scripts.
Make movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kathleen Kennedy said, Ryan and I talk all the time. He's unbelievably busy. So we're not actively involved in anything at the moment because he's doing another one of the Glass Onion movies and then God knows what else. But he really wants to step back into the space. It's a big commitment of time, so that's really on him. Which I thought was a
very political way to say that, like, not right now.
Very political, but also like randomly sharp. Like, you know, it's like saying the ball's in your court while also like whacking it as hard as you can at the other person. Yeah. It's like, oh, look, man, it's not up to me.
Yeah. And look, I think that Disney, Lucasfilm, they do that quite a bit where they get weirdly resentful for anyone that doesn't play ball or at least follow their own timeline.
Yeah, they're like, oh man, this guy who we gave a chance to do and then completely like did not back up his work the next time and who got so much hate online for this isn't willing to come back when we asked him to. What's up with that?
Yeah, they are. They did a lot of people dirty. He was one of them. and more than that,
you know who they did dirtiest, Jeremy?
We then made another
us.
and then yeah, like turns out the guy, he doesn't want to come back even though we made a sequel to his movie that basically undid everything that he did in that movie.
Everything, Jeremy.
Remember when Kylo puts his helmet back on?
Yeah.
Do you remember when Luke force lifts the X-Wing out of the ocean after a specific moment where he says, I'm not going to do that?
Yeah. Do you remember when Rey was a Palpatine?
Yeah.
When they'd already decided that her parents were nothing?
Do you remember when they killed Chewbacca and then 5 minutes later there was another ship identical to the first ship?
Do you remember when Rise of the Skywalker was the best C-3PO movie that they ever made in Star Wars?
Remember the only good part of that film? Oh, you haven't seen Mando season 3. The only good part of that film is Babu Frick, and they have put him in like half of the fucking Mando season 3 episodes.
Is he the one in the first episode?
I don't know. I don't care. But like, it's they have put that little fucker in like 3 episodes since, and I've hated every second of it.
Do they still do that thing where Carl Weathers is there? We're really going. Yeah. Where Carl Weathers translates what he's saying, even though we can understand most of it anyway.
I don't know. I think Babu Frick started to speak in like regular English in the latest one, and so like at this point, I don't care.
Does he speak regular English in Rise of Skywalker?
No.
So like he knew say, regular English during the Mandalorian season.
It's not Babu.
And somehow forgot it.
It's not Babu Frick, I don't think. It's just another one.
Oh, okay.
Like he'll say phrases in episode 9, but they're like, he'll go like, the robot. Like he'll, yeah.
Babu Frank.
Yeah.
Right. Well. I think there's more we could say, but let's
There
save
certainly
it
is.
for if we run the show short, which never happens. And get on with the topic of the show, which is Resident Evil 4. Yes, it's actually happening this week. We're reviewing the game. Everyone get excited. We're going to do that right after this intro. 20 minutes into the show. Hey, if you're still here, thanks for listening. If you like Star Wars, we talk about it sometimes, but every week, guaranteed, we will talk about video games, which is exactly what we're going to do today. If you didn't know, this is the MiniMapCast, minimap.com.au's weekly games podcast. The MiniMapCast goes live on all podcast platforms every Wednesday, with 24 hours of early access given to all of our wonderful patrons. More on that in a little bit. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you tell your friends and give the show a positive rating wherever you get this show, wherever you listen to us. It only takes a couple of seconds and it makes a huge difference. If you want to get notified every time a new episode is released, make sure to follow us on social media. Our Minimap account is at MiniMapAU on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and also Twitch, where we are currently live and where we are always live every Monday night, 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Australian Eastern Daylight Time. No, Standard Time. One of them. Melbourne time.
Yeah.
For the live recording of the MiniMapCast. We always hang out with the chat before and during and after, and we'd love to see you there. We wanted to say thank you to Shook for letting us use the Moog Model D Improv as the music for the MiniMapCast. You can listen to more of Shook's music at shook.bandcamp.com. And finally, Minimap is completely independent and funded almost entirely out of our own pockets. To help keep the light... I don't know why I can't...
Just do it a little bit.
I can't get this sentence out.
Just a bit slower. Just a bit slower.
I can go slower.
Okay.
But the thing is, I had this on I had to help keep the mics and lights on. I wrote that. That's the bit that I can't get it out of my mouth properly this last month. Anyway, to help keep the mics and lights on, you can support us over there on Patreon by becoming one of our patrons. For only $5 a month, you get 24 hours of early access, like I just said, for the MiniMapCast, some extra bonus features we're planning on cooking up, and more. Head on over to patreon.com/MiniMapAU to help us out. And remember, it's cheaper than a latte with oat milk. Yeah, slowing down is a good tip. Hey, we're going to review
Resident Evil 4.
Resident Evil, which they don't say in
They don't
game.
say. They only say that in the Revelations games.
No. I was playing this. Jeremy is very fresh on this game. You were playing it this weekend. You played 6 hours straight until you finished it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was intense.
That's great.
I'm a little less fresh on this because I was playing it over a longer period of time with a bit of pre-release access. But I finished it this week as well. Let's talk about it. I don't really have any structure for this, Jeremy. We were toying with the idea of doing like a mini disc game club episode about this one. And the more I got through it, I was like, I don't think there's enough meat on the bone here for a game club episode.
Oh, I reckon.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I reckon that would have been.
Yeah,
we always find something.
We do. I guess what I mean is I was surprised by how not intricate, how simple the story was in this game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not a extremely complex story. Like there is it's every Resident Evil story is done in two parts. It is the story about what happens over the game. It is the main character getting into like the beginning of the game and them going through all of the beats of the story. Mm-hmm. And there is also the reason why the town is fucked up. Like there's always two main stories to Resident Evil. And so when we're talking about 4, it's the exact same thing, which is like a lot of like, Leon Kennedy enters the town, is looking for the president's daughter, and, is trying to find her for a good chunk of the game and try and rescue her for the other chunk of the game.
You find her and then lose her and find her again.
Yeah. While also, you find out why the town is so fucked up. The amber in the ground and the mosquitoes that bring the plague, or like ancient horrors beyond compare. There are the two main points, and they lock throughout a lot of the game. So I reckon there would have been stuff, but yeah, it's like it's not a game that is incredibly complicated.
Yeah.
In its story, and it's also not a game that has got like, 20 characters that all have different motivations. There's basically like a cast of 8 here in this game.
Totally. And also, the other thing is like, for as much shit as the Resident Evil franchise gets for being so intricate, like borderline Kingdom Hearts level of intricate,
With like Umbrella and the
with Umbrella and the different heads of the corporation and the T virus and the G virus and the all of that. Like, this one was surprisingly Umbrella light at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, let's explore what it would be like to walk into one of these Umbrella situations that we've had in the last 3 games. It was when they made it, except a natural version, and also Umbrella had a hand in it, like, which I thought, which is interesting. It wasn't where I was expecting the story to go.
Yeah,
but it also meant that like I kind of get to like chapter 10 most of the way through the castle, and I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, and the shoe kind of doesn't drop until like chapter 15 out of 16, or like at the start of chapter 16, where you finally just realize the full scope of the story is just kind of literally what you see is what you're getting, I guess.
In a way, yeah. Like, and I think that there's maybe a misconception about Resident Evil being like Umbrella being like the biggest focus of it, because like it is in some games, but in a lot of it, it's not. Because of the movies, because the movies did like a really big focus on Umbrella as like, we're gonna like as an easy through line for multiple films. When like realistically, like they are an interesting, not faceless villain, because for the most part the face is always Wesker, but like they are always a villain to be doing dastardly things. And you always like stop them at the final moment. But they will always be back. Those kooky umbrella suit wielding, briefcase.
It's like Spectre in Bond. It's like they're the permanent, global, kind of ethereal, intangible threat that will always exist.
It's more like Hydra, I think. Like, because
yeah.
Like it is one that will always exist, no matter how much you snuff it out. It will always come back, even in name only. It will always be there to try and ruin your day. But yeah, they do. I think they do the Umbrella stuff, I think, to a good amount, where like they tease some Umbrella stuff at the very end. But like for the most part, Umbrella's like existence in this is just through Ada and through the lab and that guy. What's his name? Luis, yes, and Luis.
Like random notes and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you don't get that at like, because it's Umbrella is actually not important to anyone there right now. It is like, they've hired Ada and Luis used to work for him, but it's very like, no one is thinking about Umbrella at that moment, because at the moment, the thing that is most important to them is like, we need to get the fuck out of this town.
Yeah, totally. They kind of, Umbrella's gotten everything they wanted out of the situation, except for the literal asset they need to use to like weaponize their research.
Yeah.
And they're like, whatever, we're gonna combat this with our own thing if we can get our asset out of here.
Yeah.
But it literally takes them the whole game, and that's the only thing they're there for.
So
yeah, it's funny.
So how do you feel about this game overall? Like, what was your takeaways on like about how you feel about Resident Evil 4?
So some brief foreshadowing. Neither Jeremy nor I had played this game, the original, before playing this remake. Also, I'm not a big Resident Evil person. I've played 8 last year, and like that's it. And Jeremy, you've dabbled here and there with a couple more, but like that's not a huge amount.
Yeah, right? Like I've played some of 7. I've watched a lot of 7. I've played through 8. I like 8 a lot. I've played 2. 2's really good. I've played a lot of 1 as well. Like, I've actually played a lot of Resident Evil. Like, I didn't quite realize it until I thought about it. Like, I've played through a lot. I nearly finished 1. I got a lot of the way through 2. I finished 8.
Yeah.
I played a lot of 7.
So you're like a fair weather Resident Evil fan.
Yeah, and I've seen all the movies. Every single one.
I don't care about that. You can talk to me about Milo Jovovich another time.
I will.
I'll bet you will. And so yeah, that's the sort of context of us coming in here. The reason I mention that is because when playing the start of the game, it definitely felt like there was a really nice, almost Metroidvania feel in those early chapters with the village, where you have a few hub and spoke areas, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like smaller ones, and then you find Ashley and you eventually loop all the way back around to the village again, and it's changed for like a third time. And and that had a really satisfying feeling to it. I think they've done a great job with the levels and the world execution in this one, which I know apparently is quite different to the original, which was a bit more linear, and like loading screens between areas and all of that. So I think they did a really good job with that, but playing it felt a lot like playing a classic.
Right.
It felt high quality. It felt classic. It felt relatively simple. They're definitely honoring original design elements from the original game. That village is really similar to how it was in the first game.
It also felt really, really deliberately directed throughout, nearly all of the game. I was sitting here going, like, this has been so decided.
Yeah, but not in like an Uncharted way where it feels like a tunnel. Like they kind of make a space that is a bit larger and then funnel you through it in interesting ways, which feels really organic.
Yep.
Which is, it's great. I think it's really, really good. I really like it because I think for me, and I didn't realize this, and I mentioned this in one of our early episodes, but I think for me, I really appreciate that it is a bit more actiony and a bit less horror-y compared to a game like 8 or 7, or 2 even. And it's tricky, right? Because 4, they change so much with 4 compared to 3, 2, 7, 8. Like 4 is so different in a lot of ways. And it's the start of them. Not only is it maybe the best Resident Evil game, it's also one of the most different from what came before, different from what has come since, but similar to the worst games the franchise saw, in at least in the mainline entries, with 5 and 6. Like 5 and 6 are what they are because 4 was so successful after changing so much. And so they were like, oh, people like change. Let's change it up. And they changed it up and people didn't like it again the second time or the third time. So like, it's a really interesting thing to look at. For me though, with 4, it's a great balance of gameplay, of action, of resource management, tension, level design and exploration, silly, cheesy, like anime sort of energy that just sort of permeates the whole thing. Like, I think it's a really, really good schlocky balance.
Yeah, it honestly, like, it didn't feel like I think the part of the game that felt anime was the movement and combat, but the actual dialogue isn't like I've been going through some of those old cheesy action films like of the 80s. Like they're kind of like that. Like it honestly feels like a weirdly like what it reminds me of. It feels like a Japanese studio making a making a action film from the West.
Right. Okay.
Where they are adapting the cheesy one-liners that a lot of the Dolph Lundgren or the Jean-Claude Van Damme film actors of the day, their one-liners being translated into this about 15 or 20 years after they, like, realistically after they came out, is so fucking funny. But I also think it kind of works because the premise of the game is ridiculous, right? It is an American CIA, FBI, CIA, right?
It's like special,
or is he Spec Ops?
presidents?
Yeah, right.
Like special men, like business.
So Spec Ops. Going into
president's special men.
Going into a generic Eastern European country, or just generic European. It's not even specifically Eastern European. It's just European.
Yeah,
they're speaking a mix of Spanish and a couple other languages throughout the most part.
Mm-hmm.
He gets just transported into there because the president's daughter has been kidnapped.
For some reason, the U.S. president's daughter has been kidnapped and is cross-continentally just across the world.
Yes,
in this backwards village.
And so instead of sending the military or everything under the sun, they send like one guy who used to be a cop in Raccoon City.
For one day, one night.
One night, yeah. That's right. It was his first day in Resident Evil 2. He was cop for a day.
Yeah.
And they just drop him in there and said like, well, go get her, son.
Yeah. Don't worry, you've got an earpiece to talk to headquarters.
Yeah, and headquarters is like, we can't send a chopper. We're still waiting on the chopper. And at the end, like when the chopper shows up, like that was sick as fuck. But also like the entire time is like, yeah, we're trying, but like it's difficult. Like it's the
also turns out you're a whole couple of continents away. Yeah. We're drastically under resourced for this operation.
Yeah. And like the premise of that is ridiculous. It is a dumb story, but fuck, is it fun? Because everybody,
it is fun, isn't it?
Everybody like treats it as important.
Yeah.
Like Ada is there doing her own thing. She's got her own story that is happening behind the scenes. There is, you can tell there's history between Leon and Ada. But she's also a ridiculous character in the sense that she's doing, dramatic, over-the-top stunts. Will show up at the last minute to save your ass just for a second. Is not at all dressed for the occasion.
Not at all dressed for the occasion.
But I love every second of it. And is just there to be cool. And
basically.
But also she's there to be... a different perspective from everyone else in the game, right? Because she's not some person who's been here for a very long time. She's
also not an Umbrella agent.
No. She's a merc, right? She's just being paid, and she's there with her own desires and her own goals, and just bumps into Leon, and sometimes their goals align in a way that like she'll help out for a moment, but more often than not, the only time she helps out is because she's probably like, this dumb fucking guy's just gonna get himself killed if I don't like help out now.
Well, yeah, but the other times, like for most of the game, she's like, oh yeah, this guy I know turned up and he's just making headway on his own. I'm just gonna watch and let him do that.
Yeah. And Luis is similar as well, where he's got his own thing and he betrays you once or twice, and then also like will eventually teams up with Leon when he realizes, the probably the extent of the bad things that he's done. He wants to try and make amends and has a death of a death of honor in a way.
Yeah, I guess.
Kind of like he just kind of dies, but like he fulfills his purpose, I guess, for the story, and the plot no longer required him to continue being around. But it all works in this one singular like, and like I hate bringing this, like I hate doing this way to describe games again, but again it feels like a play. There is a small group of people, there is one singular plot, and people will rotate in and out depending on where they're at until there's a grand finale, and then it sort of ends. It's so funny.
It is, but it's a good like,
it's a good time.
It is a good time, and it is kind of nice that it's that simple. Like, I feel like Uncharted games aren't this simple in their plot, No. And it meant that, like, for like Sam watching the game, like on the couch, they weren't as engaged, right? They like seeing the cutscenes, like moments with Leon and Ashley and whatever. But then sometimes there would legitimately be just like an hour of me killing bastards in the castle. Like sometimes it would just take for fucking ever to get to the next interesting thing that happens.
Yeah.
And for me, playing and enjoying the gameplay, that's not a problem.
Yeah,
so,
like, and look, this is also a game from 10 or 15 years ago now, and so like there was differences in terms of like emotional moments in a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
You get some emotional moments in 8, but it's mostly just like realization moments, and like 8's also a different game.
And also it's also like villain introductions and cutscenes. A lot of the scenes you're getting are like, here's the villain doing something messed up and creepy. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, and part of that is because like Ethan is alone for nearly the entirety of 8. Like the few times
he's also as boring as a sack of potatoes.
I don't know if he's boring. Like he's definitely a regular person compared to Leon, but also he's like he's been through shit. I feel bad for Ethan. He's been through a lot.
Yeah, I feel bad for how Chris Redfield treats Ethan.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing, because the one time Ethan isn't alone is when he's with Chris, and Chris is like, "Ethan, shut the fuck up, I hate you." And
yeah, he talks to him like a bad dog owner.
Yeah, and he just like, Chris is the kind of guy, he would pick up Ethan and say like, "You're okay," and then would just slap him across the face.
Yeah.
He would be so mean to him.
Yep.
Yeah, whereas
feel sad when he dies.
Yeah.
So while we've touched on this thread,
yes.
I do want to talk about the differences and similarities between Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 8.
Okay.
Playing 8, going into it, having seen and heard a bit about 4 last year, it was very much like, oh wow, this is like a village setting in Europe. Like that seems quite similar to apparently what the premise is for 4. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then you go through and there's the big castle thing with Lady D, and there's the metalworks, and there's the dollhouse, and the lake with the big fish monster. And then you get to the end and it's all over in about 8 hours, which is just a absolute romp. But also it feels really slow and deliberate. Like Ethan moves very slowly. The enemies move very slowly. You got to hit him with like 8 headshots to get him down. And I was describing it to someone yesterday as like, the gameplay is like, man, I hope I hit enough of these headshots before the enemy reaches me in 30 seconds so that they don't attack me. It's like, that's the combat in that game, is like,
yeah, in a way. Yeah.
It's like, you see the pieces. It's like, oh, he's going to get you. He's going to get you if you don't shoot him in the head 8 times, and he's going to duck his head a bit and like move. Anyway. And then you get to 4 and you arrive in this European / maybe South American village. I don't know if they're speaking Spanish. It could be anywhere.
It is Europe. It is definitely Europe.
Yeah, but mate, sure. So you arrive in this place, and the villages are all taken over, and it's a village. It's like, oh, that's interesting. That's kind of like 8. Oh, wait, no, but 8 was kind of like 4. Okay, whatever. And then you get to the castle, and you're like, oh, this is a big castle. That's interesting. It's all shiny and whatever. And it's like, oh wow, that lake has a big lake monster in it. Wow, that's interesting. And it's like rotting, and there's like all of the village houses have like rotting fruit bowls in it. It's like, oh, I feel like I've been here before. And you return to the village like 3 or 4 times in that first area, and you have more keys this time, or you're with Ashley and she can unlock more doors. And so the village recontextualizes itself every time you get there. It's like, have I played this game before? Like, it's so eerily similar in that first half of the game, like in so many ways. And then you realize that Resident Evil 4 goes for like 2.5 times the length of Resident Evil 8.
Yeah.
And that 8 was just the hits, baby. It was just give me the good stuff and get us home.
Yeah,
like,
it is. Like I have a funny, like I've put them together in my head as like Resident Evil 4 is like 8 is obviously a love letter to 4, but like the way the new remake is of 4 is not at all how like old Resident Evil feels. But Resident Evil 8 is a first-person version of those old Resident Evil games, which is the slow, like, you don't want to move too much while you're aiming because your aiming will be off. So you can walk and shoot in RE8, but you really don't often. You kind of like are just slowly walking backwards and shooting, but even if then, you just kind of like, there's a lot of staying still, shooting, not like, kind of like GoldenEye. It's not like GoldenEye, but you know what I mean, right? Where it's
If
like
GoldenEye was a like horror survival game.
yeah. And yeah, like 8 is slower, like 4 was originally, but 4 is a sequel to, like the 4 remake is a sequel to modern day survival horror third person games.
Yeah,
because
which was like influenced by 4, but then iterated upon.
Yeah. Whereas 8 is more influenced by the old version of 4 than it is a new version of 4. It's fascinating. It's so interesting.
Yeah, they're really. What they did with this game is they skirted a really fine line between honoring the past and modernizing the past as well, and turning it into something relevant in today's age. Like this will be in people's Game of the Year discussions as a modern game.
Yeah.
In the same way that Final Fantasy VII Remake was.
Yeah. And like it should be in those conversations because like it is overall like a really phenomenal experience.
Yeah.
Like
it's the kind of game that I'm going to think back on and not be like, wow, that blew my socks off like Final Fantasy VII Remake. But I'm only going to think back fondly of it. I'm not going to forget how good I thought it was. It was just enjoyable from start to finish with a few, I had a few niggles here and there, but like they were minor inconveniences.
And I also think it's like overall, like I can see myself going back and playing this again.
Yeah, me too.
Whereas like there's like a lot of games that I'm like, that was really great. Never want to play it again, but that was really great. Whereas in this, I'm like it was like fun. I'm sitting here and I had fun playing that game. You know, like I want to play that game with people who haven't played this game before. I want to maybe I will I will watch the GDC of this game. AGDQ of this game, right? Like I will watch people speedrun RE4 because it is a fun thing to see them be really good at a game like this. Yeah. Similar with 8, like, you know, like the reason I was trying to get you to play 8 is because like I had a great fun and I had a great amount of fun playing that game. You would have a great amount of fun playing that game as well. So I can in a roundabout way, like get that fun again from you playing it and you telling me you feeling how you felt when it matches up probably with how I felt at that moment as well. 4 will do that. And like, I think for the most part, the reason people love 4 so much, the original one, is because it's got a similar feeling. I don't know anyone that doesn't like the original 4 or has played the original 4 who's then been like, I don't want you to play it. Like there's definitely people will ask you to play the original Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, the only people I know who don't like Resident Evil 4 are usually people who came to it late,
right?
And who are like, this feels like garbage because it definitely has outdated controls.
Sure.
And yeah, that I think that this does a great job of alleviating that. I love that you can move and shoot in this just like a normal third-person action game.
Yeah,
I really like the aiming. I like the headshot to melee kind of loop or leg shot to melee loop, and then try and knife them if they start, you know, releasing their parasite, or the different weapons. I enjoy the crafting and the resource management. Like, it's fun to play.
It is. It is really fun to play, and also, but it's also fun to be in this world, right? You know, like the gameplay of The Last of Us 2 is really good and engaging and enjoyable, but being in that world isn't really fun. But being in the world of Resident Evil 4 is really fun. You know, like the characters are all silly, like, you know, like the shopkeeper is, you know, the classic, like, what are you buying? Like, but he's weirdly chummy.
Yeah.
But he kind of lets on that he knows what's going on, but he just kind of doesn't care.
Yeah.
You know, and like
it's the kind of thing where it's like, how did you get down here?
Yeah. And you know, like hilarious moments where like I will come in like with nearly no health and I will like have shit all over me and I'll have no ammo. And he'll be like, you've got the stench of battle on you, my friend, or something like that. and I'm looking like, you piece of shit. Like, you know what I have just been through, you fucker.
I remember I was it was the final part of chapter 15, which is after the helicopter. It's that big final rush to Sadler and Ashley. And it was like the final merchant room for that chapter.
Yeah. And he says
I run in there, and it was a similar thing. I'm like, I'm out of resources. like Leon's veins are all black and bulging. He's not great. Ashley is like worse than he is right now. Like it's going badly. And I walk in the door and he just gives me one of his lines I'd heard of so often by that point, but he just gives me, he's like, haha, gun rides with fun for a reason, stranger. It's like, man, shut up. I'm doing something here. Do you have any ammo?
He's
no,
so
all right.
good, yeah.
What are you
But also, like, the shit that Leon says as well is just as ridiculous, right? Like, the final line, I'm going to spoil the final line because it's so fucking funny, where he
So is this in the final boss fight when the boss is finally, like, turned into, like, a big tentacle monster and he's just standing there speaking to it?
Yeah, and he goes, he goes, I'll give you a holy body, and he, like, like, blows off the fucking boss.
Yeah,
that's so fucking funny. Like, and like I'm sitting here laughing like at that because it's a great joke because the game is so legitimately funny and has such a good sense of humor. It doesn't
overuse it though.
It doesn't, and it's not crude. It's like and it's not slapstick. It's corny, but it's good corny. It's like
whereas I feel like today people would very quickly say like there's a razor thin line you can cross, and as soon as you are, it's immediately into cringe. It's not there.
Yeah, it's not. It's not quippy, and it doesn't make fun of itself, which is the thing, because it doesn't do the like the example that always comes to my head is in fucking the last Spider-Man movie, where Dr. Octopus says like my name is Otto Octavius, and like the three kids,
and then they laugh.
Yeah, they start like snickering at him, and I'm sitting here going like you don't actually get to laugh at that, because you've just had a ridiculous life already. To you, someone named Otto Octavius, who is Dr. Octopus, that's actually not funny. Like it's funny because the audience knows it's funny.
It would kind of be like exhausting funny, right? It's like, oh, of course that's your name.
Yeah, right. Like the amount of times that they make a Doctor Strange name joke, like we know, like we are so beyond this. Like this isn't, like you are laughing at now the thing that you are actually trying to adapt, and you laughing at that doesn't actually do anything for anyone, because you're not more clever than it. But Resident Evil doesn't do that. It will make these jokes, and they will kind of treat them as a matter of fact. You know, like I've written something down in my notes for Resident Evil 4, which is actually not a thing that Leon says. But if he did say this, I would kind of want this on a T-shirt, to the point that I'm also like semi debating: do I commission someone to?
You're gonna make a not actually spoken Resident Evil quote shirt?
Yes.
A hypothetical Resident Evil quote shirt? That's great. What is it?
Happy knife, happy life. Because he's dumb, right? Like he's like a
Leon.
Yeah. Like in terms, like he's a himbo, right? He's like a very muscly, like not exactly the most intelligent, but it doesn't really matter because he's good at heart kind of guy. He would be the kind of guy to like get a new knife and see that it is sharp and go, happy knife, happy life.
Happy knife, happy life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. There've been a couple of videos on IGN with the voice actor for Leon in the last few days, which is interesting because the guy who plays Leon for Resident Evil 2 and 4 and one of the animated shows recently, I think, was a fan of Resident Evil 2 and just Resident Evil in general, and 4 when they came out, and of Leon specifically as a character. So that's cool. So into he's like fanboying out over all of these quotes and stuff. I recommend checking out he reads out quotes from the original game that aren't said in the remake, like some of the more cheesy stuff, like at one point Salazar is talking about his script that he's written and how Leon's not a part of it, and that it's really fun to just see that, but it's also nice knowing that part about about how it was made. You know, like that's one cog in one of the machines. It's just a highly visible cog for this one. But I think they do a great job with all of his lines. There aren't that many of them. They spread them out a lot. But I would constantly laugh at the generic ones in combat. He's like, "Oh, give me a break," or "They just keep on coming," but the ones I really liked is whenever he's with Ashley, and it's not an Ashley specific line, but I love it when he says it when Ashley's there, and he pulls off like a melee kick, and he's like, I don't know. He's like, "Better luck next time, pal." You know, it's something like that. It's like really generic. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
And I listen to him say that, and I kind of hear it, and I treat it seriously because he's saying it seriously, and it's just like, wow, Leon really needs the validation in this situation right now, doesn't he? Like
There's a part maybe 3/4 of the way through the game after he's seen just like incredible amounts of horrors and dreadful visuals that no one should ever see.
And he knows he's got something growing inside of him.
Yeah, and I think he says, "This just keeps getting worse." And I'm and it's like, that's so funny. To have that perspective on the apocalypse that you are enduring. It's like, fuck, this just keeps getting worse. Like, that's doesn't like this might have been what I just know from the original, but isn't there a moment where he says something along the lines of like, "Hey, is that a dog?" Or like when he's like he's seeing this giant like monster like walk up to him or something.
Oh, I don't know. Are you thinking of the dog in the bear trap?
No, I don't remember what part of it. I think it might be from the original game.
Yeah. There was also a moment in chapter 15 where we walked into a room and there were all those like body bags hanging from the ceiling, and he gave us a good "what the," which I appreciated. So we spoke a lot about like the acting and the cadence of the story and stuff like that. But Jeremy, what were your top 2 weapons?
Oh,
if your top 1 ran out, what would you immediately switch to in a moment of crisis?
Like, so I actually
and then third, what pistol did you choose?
Yeah, so the pistol is honestly the gun I used the most in the whole game.
Me too.
Was the I don't know the name of the gun. It looked like a World War II pistol. But it had like a.
Whenabouts did you get it?
It was the second pistol, I believe.
Second pistol was it the Punisher?
No. It had just a very technical name.
Okay.
Resident Evil 4 pistols.
So the pistol I chose was the Punisher, which I think was a one you have to trade for Spinel for like the side quest currency.
Right.
And that one I kept because there were only 2 that would let you attach the red dot sight, which I liked using. And so I kept that one, and that one had like high penetration, so you could shoot through targets.
Right. Okay. I used the Red 9, I believe, was the one that I used the whole way through.
Oh yeah, the World War II. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain didn't go far enough back to realize what you meant.
Yeah.
Yes, the Red 9 is a strong choice for a lot of people in that game.
Yeah, and it was just like the actual power of the machine was just like so strong that I was like, I just couldn't give it up. Like I saw the Magnum in the shop, I was like, do I get it? Like, no, I just really fucking like this gun. And it was also like it was one of the great things in this game is that like I had developed this level of fondness for the gun. And I also understood how it worked. That I was like, I didn't actually want to learn another pistol and be frustrated by it being like, slower to reload or it handles differently. Like I was just like, I know
like
this
just
gun.
not upgraded yet.
Exactly. I was like, I know this gun, so I'm gonna stick with this gun.
Yeah. I tried that one. It was too inaccurate for me. I didn't enjoy how inaccurate it was. I didn't get the stock for it, but like. That's why I went for the Punisher in the end. And I got really nerdy with it after a while where I started looking at their stats and then going to the other page and comparing the numbers and like, oh, this one starts here, which means really quickly it'll be further than that one and blah, 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 blah.
I was about to do that. I like Googled like Resident Evil gun, like tiers and like comparisons. And then I closed the tab.
You're like, who could be bothered?
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to find my guns and I'm going to change it up if I want, but like these are going to be my guns.
So Jeremy, your Red 9's only got 5 bullets left and a sledgehammer hog guy lands in front of you. What do you whip out?
The riot gun.
The riot gun.
The riot gun.
Right. So that's the second shotgun.
I think it was the second shotgun. Might have been the third. It was like it wasn't like automatic, but it felt like it was like semi-auto. And it was
that's the pump shotgun, but it's like a modern tactical carbon fiber metal one, right?
Yeah, and it's got this scope on it that means that there's really not a whole lot of spread on the bullets. Right. And so I could inject shells into enemies that were actually quite far away, and it could just take off their heads. It was great.
Yeah.
It was.
I opted for
good.
the shorter one that came after that. I don't remember what it's called.
Striker.
Yeah, the Striker.
Right.
And that's got like a 12 or 15. It's got like a drum mag.
Yeah, it's got the drum mag. I just use it.
That's the like, fuck, there's so many people here. Just like, poof, 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 just clear the field and reset.
I also fucked around with the Stingray a fair bit. That was good fun, which is an assault rifle.
I bought that one, sold it because I found like an M16 in like a puzzle room somewhere, and then went back to the Stingray because I didn't like how fast the M16 used rifle ammo.
Right. Okay.
And it wasn't as powerful. It wasn't as accurate. The Stingray was really good.
Did you use submachine? Okay, so like, did you use submachine guns a lot in this game?
Yeah, if my pistol was out, I went to the TMP first.
So the part in the lab where you meet the regenerators.
Yeah.
Did you find the submachine gun in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first time I used the submachine gun.
Oh, okay.
I didn't use a submachine.
Did you buy one and not use it, or you just didn't even bother?
I didn't even bother.
Yeah, right.
And then
I tried to buy one of each class.
Like
I had like a spread.
I wanted to save room in the inventory because they all like they take up a lot of space having one of each. And the Stingray is huge. The Stingray fucking takes a big chunk of space. And then I get to the part with the regenerators, and I've got like no ammo, and I barely took out one, and I had no idea how I did it. And I was like,
that's the thing. I did enjoy the figuring out how I took them out like over time.
Yeah.
But sorry, go on.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I've got no ammo, and I walk past that room where there's 4 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you're fucking kidding me. And so I leave and I find a submachine gun, and because I haven't
It's a good one too.
Oh, it's great. And because I hadn't used one, I had stacks of ammo sitting in my inventory.
Were you just sitting on it?
Well, like, I wasn't ever running out of space. I was like on the edge, but I would always get rid of bolts or get rid of like the fire, turn bolts into fire bolts. Like I didn't use
the mines.
Yeah. Like I got rid of those as well. And I just kept the SMG ammo because I was like, oh, I'll probably get one eventually, but like, I don't know when. And so then I find this SMG and I find the scope that lets me kill the regenerators.
Man, finding a new weapon with a whole stack of ammo for that fight, what a godsend. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I stumbled in there with like a couple of boxes for a few different weapons and really struggled.
Yeah. Like, and that scope. And then I just walked right into that regenerator room. And I'm just like, all right, fuckers. And so I just like one at a time, I just like surgically killed them in all the right spots. Then activated the thing when all the other guys came in. And I remember thinking like, wow, if these regenerators are still alive, this part would be fucking difficult, but it's not. So it's not. It was so good.
I never thought to activate the keycard mechanism once I got the wrench, like while they were still alive. I always tried to take them all out first.
Yeah. But
yeah, I spent I didn't know I think I tried firing at the canisters a couple of times and it didn't break. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I just assumed it wouldn't break.
You can break them out.
Yeah, I should have done that. I broke them out with grenades. So I frequently had all 4 of them loose.
Oh no!
And I didn't know you could use the thermal sight to see their parasites.
So what did you think it was for?
No.
Oh, so you didn't know what the thermal scope was for?
And, like, you pick it up in that room. I didn't think to properly use it in that fight.
Kerry, the thermal scope will tell you which one has got a wrench in it.
I know. I figured it out eventually, and I was like, oh, that's why it was in that room.
Oh no.
I spent like 45 minutes in that
Oh
room.
my god.
And
That's
Sam
so
and I were
funny.
laughing a lot too because those regenerators animate so strangely.
They're so funny.
Like they'll fall over, like it seems like they're dead, and you've broken both their arms off. Their head isn't there anymore. And they'll go from still to like leaping at you like a fish, like instantly afterwards. And it would happen multiple times, and every time we would laugh.
Do you remember at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2 when you're fighting those nobodies that are like that? And they're like those weird ones that kind of like...
Oh, they kind of swim around.
Yeah. Like that's
vaguely.
That's exactly what they were like to me this whole time. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
god, they're the fucking reversals from Kingdom Hearts 2 that is like swimming around and then like throwing themselves at me and going back again.
Yep. I actually really liked that room when they did fall over and did start swimming around, because I had the Punisher, because I had the penetrating pistol. If I could shoot them long ways, I usually did a lot of damage. I usually found a couple of the parasites in there.
Yeah.
And when I'd broken all 4 of them out, the pistol was great too for that, because it went through a bunch of them. Although the SMG you find is better for that. That I was very silly with that. I'm trying to think if there's anything we really missed. I think I touched on most of what I wanted to say.
Yeah, like there's a couple things that I wanted to touch on. One of them being like Ashley as a character, I think is actually like not nearly as bad as I expected, judging from the amount of hate online that I knew from when Resident Evil 4 came out. And I think
her companion AI system was pretty lackluster back then, and she'd get grabbed a lot and scream a lot.
Yeah, like I think that like I hope that they have improved it since the original game.
It's the only thing they didn't touch.
Well, but like I can also just see it being like, you know, like I hate women in video games kind of also reasoning. So like I don't like, you know, as
this is annoying because women are annoying.
Yeah, basically.
Right.
So like I think that Ashley was actually like, you know, while, you know, definitely being like child of a rich person, kind of like clueless in real world scenarios a lot of the time, like she's been through it in this game, and like
she gets more seasoned throughout as well.
There was a moment where you meet up with her again later in the game, and you're going through like this like disgusting sewer, and Leon's like you okay, like to keep going. And she says like, yeah, like I think I wouldn't have been, but like I am now, or something like that. Like, and she's got like, and it's a quick aside of like, oh, like turns out she's actually started to harden a little bit just from this night. You know, who knows how much of that is shock and like and not quite realizing, but also just genuine, like she got a bit tougher throughout the game, which is good. It was
and not in a way that she was like absolutely useless beforehand. Like she would still help you hold things and boost and whatever. Like, but yeah, I did enjoy her fairly concise character development throughout this game.
Yeah. And the playing as her was also fine. Like
that section was interesting, wasn't it?
The moment the moment I realized I was in control of Ashley, like my mind flashed back to fucking God of War Ragnarok, and I was like, oh no. But it was fine. It was totally fine. It was just like it was a different thing.
My mind went to Ellie.
Right. Okay. Sure.
I feel like there's a lot of parallels you could draw with the new version of RE4 with The Last of Us, like how there's crouch and backstabs now where they didn't used to be. And
like her section was interesting because it was definitely like a lot more horror focused. It was
that was like the dollhouse section, right? Like
Yeah, it is. It is the you are not fighting here. Now you are running, and you are the mouse, and there are cats everywhere.
But also a good amount of lead up of why are there sheets over these things? Oh no, the sheet is gone. Where is the thing?
Immediately I was like, I don't trust that. Like I saw that and being like, no. Yep. Like I was sprinting throughout that entire section.
Really? I didn't have the confidence.
There was never a moment where I wasn't running, and I was doing that thing in my mind where I'm like, be brave, be brave, be brave, be brave, as I'm like running through the dark.
Yeah, I got stuck a couple of times because there was like one doorway that wasn't very obvious on the map where you had to go.
Right.
But
Right.
we got there at the end. The section where you have to like crawl through the ones that all get stuck in the doorway by the blue lanterns
Yeah.
though, that was pretty creepy.
Yeah, that was
Um,
creepy.
There's also just one useless elevator I couldn't get to work. I don't know what that was about.
I'm not sure. Was it maybe I don't know, actually.
I tried it. I think I tried it too late, and so like I put the key in, and then the button just didn't work, and so I just get stuck in there. But the knights couldn't hit me in there either, so I just be stuck.
Oh, right. Okay.
It was weird.
Yeah.
I think my biggest gripe with this game is the other basic, not every boss fight, but most of them. Every boss fight that was not in a big arena was awful.
Right.
But also I feel like they gave. I liked the Krauser fights. I actually enjoyed those with the where you have to parry a bunch and then like run between the cover. Like I enjoyed those, but the Salazar fight, the Father and what's that guy's name? The guy with the hat, the big guy.
The first one.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah,
that fight was okay, but the final fight and the Salazar fight I really dislike because I feel like they want me to treat it like a Souls game. Like, oh, read the attack and dodge left here instead of dodge right, like purposeful movements and stuff like that. Except Leon moves like he's got a Hessian sack tied around his waist. So like the kind of precision movements they're asking me to pull off, I feel like I'm only able to start recognizing them once I get absolutely wrecked by them in the first place. Like at the final boss when he's spewing stuff at you, like the tell for that is really quick, and you have to be like 45 meters to the left of him to miss that attack. Like that's a really hard one to dodge quickly, and they throw it at you quickly. And I felt like that a lot of times. Salazar as well, didn't enjoy. All right, go on. Tell me how you one-shot it.
I don't know. I just sort of did.
All right. Whatever.
I don't know. I mean, like, look, I think that like it is hard to do bosses when your main character controls like a desk chair. But like I think it is like I just didn't actually. I didn't have any issues with it.
Yeah, like I thought his controls were well tuned, and they taught me how to use these controls well for crowd control. Right?
Yeah.
Get a bunch of them down. Try and hit one in the head so you can kick a bunch of them over. Run around them because you're usually faster than all of them. So run around to get a bit of space, turn around, and then see what else you can do. Try not to get hit from behind. Like I think it works really well for the core gameplay, which is why I had a really decent time trying the Mercenaries mode today. But yeah, something about like, oh, run around Salazar and don't get hit by his like grab attack, but also he's leaving like floor-colored explosive traps on the ground occasionally, so watch out for those. But stop moving slowly and aiming at the ground.
You shoot the traps
because he's gonna. I did, but then he'd always fuck me up with another gross venom spit attack. Like I just didn't enjoy them. I just felt like they didn't work with what tools. They didn't work with the game knowledge I had and the tools I had available to me, I guess.
Fair enough. Yeah, I quite liked them. I had a good time. I think I didn't love the Salazar one, but not because like I didn't have like any major issues with it. I just sort of like finished the fight and I was like, whatever. The first one I thought was pretty good because there was a lot of reading the fight, and I also you keep on killing him and he continues to be alive. That I didn't know when the fight was going to end in a way that was fun. I was sort of like, all right, like what's he got for me next? Like that was quite funny. I actually didn't love the Krauser fight, but I think only just because I just didn't. I was just a bit over that environment by that point.
The island,
like the castle, like that overall section of the castle. I just didn't super love. Like it was fine. It was fine. Yeah, like I thought the boss fights were fun. Like they're never like the thing is, I think because I think you're right in your describing it of they're kind of like a Souls fight. But the way I'd put it in my mind is that they're kind of like those gimmick Souls fights where you have to
Ah.
you have to find the way to kill them, and
Yeah.
everything else is just kind of noise.
I was gonna say it's like this one from Elden Ring, but I don't think he did that one.
Right. It's those ones that are there that are not specifically there for you to be better at the game than it wants you to be, but just for you to figure out the puzzle. Because
Yeah.
realistically, like the one of the strongest things about Resident Evil is how good its puzzles are, and its bosses are actually just more puzzles, just with punishment.
Yeah, combat puzzles.
Not unlike that little combat encounter with the knights, right? Like that was like that's a puzzle. Like it's a combat fight, but it's a puzzle.
Yeah, but you're not fighting them. You're just avoiding being fighted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you
Yeah.
give it a rating out of 10?
Out of 10, off the top of my head, 9.5.
Yeah, me too.
Just rock solid. Absolutely foundationally solid.
Yeah. I'll play that game again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how much, like that's a tons of praise. It's not a 10 out of 10, which is I never want to play it again because I know that I will, like, it is like special, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't play my 10s out of 10s often.
Yeah.
Because they are special to me.
Totally. This, if I was to think of this like food, right?
Mm.
Where like the Spider-Man DLC was junk food, if you remember that article from however long
I
ago.
remember that article.
Where it was like easily ingestible but didn't mean anything. Or if like Outer Wilds is just this like euphoric experience that you can never get again, either because it was too expensive or like the restaurant closed or something.
Yeah.
This is like easy pasta and sauce that you can cook at home, and you cook it at home. And like you can have this 3 or 4 or 5 nights a week and it's gonna taste good every time.
Yeah. I
You know what I mean? Like I'm
yes.
not gonna write home and say like, oh, I make this pasta with red sauce. It's amazing. You've never had anything like it. I'm gonna be like, man, this is a good video game. Video game. You want some good video game? This is a good video game.
Okay. I'm gonna give you a counter
Analogy?
Yeah, analogy. In that yes, Spider-Man is McDonald's. Well, the DLC is McDonald's.
Yeah.
Outer Wilds is like grandma's cooking. It's like it's got like a
Kerry
place.
burgers.
It's got a moment that it's associated with.
Usually 40 years before you were born.
Yeah. And Resident Evil 4 is you've gone to it's having pizza in Italy.
Okay, yeah.
It is not just an amazing meal.
And it's not just pizza.
No, but it's the best one of its kind you can basically get. Like pizza in Italy. Like you're not gonna get better pizza anywhere else.
Yeah,
it's pizza in Italy. You know, it's
like when you hear about people who go overseas and then they have that one restaurant like 12 times out of like 15 meals that they're there.
Yeah. It would be a burrito in Mexico. It would be the where it's from.
Yep.
Like you're gonna get it the best.
A fish and chips burger with the lot from Australia.
Yeah.
That's terrible analogy because those aren't that great.
Yeah. The best French restaurant in the heart of London.
The best bakery in Paris.
A perfectly cooked piece of fish in the middle of Greece.
Mm-hmm.
Paella in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Las Plagas.
Gloria las plagas.
I looked it up. It's set in Spain, technically.
Set in Spain. Okay.
I didn't know if it actually had a country associated with it, but it does. It is set in Spain. Apparently Reddit sleuths have put together exactly the region where it would have been set based on like geography, based on like the adjacent like its closeness
like
to
foliage.
Yeah, but also like mountain ranges and like islands and near.
Oh wow, they like geoguessed it.
Like it's not 100% obviously, but it's like if it was going to be anywhere, it's going to be like at the specific northern region of Spain.
Wow, that's funny.
Which is quite funny.
Great. Well, something I would recommend people do is
Play Resident Evil 4.
play Resident Evil 4, and if you get into it, check out some of Digital Foundry's content, because they did a retro replay kind of thing where they compared the GameCube version, the original, to the terrible PC port that came out with all of the awful graphics and concessions they made, where it's like it looks like a game that came out 8 years prior. Like it's so bad. They keep saying this is the year we got Crysis, and look at this.
You know how many, this is so. I'm gonna talk about this in the break. I'm gonna go to the break.
I
was about to ask a question that's gonna take 15 minutes.
All right. Look forward to that in the break, or rather, we'll be back after this short break. We'll be right back. Terrible segue. Welcome back to the MiniMapCast. And boy, if you thought we could talk a lot about Star Wars when the show started, you should have been there for that break. That was a lot of Star Wars.
I remember once, I think you asked me if we wanted to do a Star Wars show or something.
Yeah.
And I remember saying like, I think I don't, only because it would turn into just me parroting ideas that I've heard of a more civilized age, and that's just not good content. And like, I stand by that. But like, if there's one thing I do know, it's that we could make hours of content.
We could. Me, somewhat passionate but non-well-versed fan, and you, a very passionate, very well-versed fan.
I got some bad news as we went into the break. I looked
personal or societal?
Personal. I got a notification on Twitter saying that it is my Twitter anniversary today, and that they're asking me if I want to celebrate a special tweet created just for me. 12 years on Twitter is what it told me. 12. You know what that means, Kerry?
It means you're at least 12 years old.
It means that next year, half of my life will have spent on Twitter. Next year and 13 years on Twitter means that me, a 26-year-old, means that half of my life has been spent on Twitter.
Yeah, man, that does mean what that means.
That's a very bad thing to hear.
That's a milestone that Sam and I are crossing this year, and we're quite excited about it.
12 years on Twitter.
No, half our lives spent together. But like... It's so much nicer than being paired with Elon.
Yeah. I mean, it's not 12 years with him.
That's true, but it is what it represents right now.
That divorce.
Did you see what he did to his fucking sign on his building?
Yeah, I did.
It wasn't even a joke. I thought it was a joke.
No, he doesn't get jokes. He doesn't understand jokes.
For those of you who aren't aware, he wanted to take the sign on the building that says Twitter down or something, and they wouldn't let him. So he painted over the W, and now the sign on the building says Titter.
Yeah.
And that's the joke?
Yeah, that's the joke. Yeah, the joke understander has logged on and started to make them. That was a great tweet that someone said, which is like Elon was again complaining about workers or whatever. And someone replied to him saying,
"They make me too much money."
Yeah, right. And someone replied to him like what would be your advice if someone who was quite stable started to work at an electronics company and just complain the entire time and not get any actual work done and not make anyone's lives easier and stuff. And Elon responded genuinely because he simply doesn't understand jokes.
He didn't understand that was about him.
Yeah, he didn't get that at all. He doesn't understand like humor. Or because I think to understand humor, you have to get people, and he just doesn't.
He's like a child.
He is. He's like a child, and it's annoying how much his fucking childish decisions impact me.
Yes,
it is maybe the most.
I still go back to. Sorry.
No, go on.
I still go back to that interview he did with someone about Buzz Aldrin. And then that person came in with quotes about how Buzz Aldrin never wanted to be in the same room with him or something like that. And he started crying in the interview because he admires Buzz Aldrin so much. Whatever. It's like, I mean, if I was told my hero specifically pointed towards me, at me, did not want to see me, that would be pretty intense.
Yeah.
But also, surely you've got thicker skin than that at this point. Like,
well, no, because he bought Twitter. like all of this is like this entire thing. He didn't want to buy Twitter.
No, he didn't.
And the changes he's made to Twitter has been because he gets relentlessly bullied on Twitter.
Yes.
You know, the entire destruction of the verification system that he's put in place over the past 6 months has been entirely because he resents anybody that had a check mark, because they would relentlessly bully him because he deserved it.
Yes.
Like,
this all boils down to the thickness of Elon's skin, i.e. how not.
Yeah, it boils down to that, and it also boils down to we should bully nerds more. I stand by this. There's a reason all of the worst people in the world are nerds. There is a reason all of them are, and it's because we didn't bully them into submission early enough. And then they surround themselves with people who don't bully, and so therefore we need to continuously bully nerds until they get back in line.
I'm sorry, who are you in this situation?
I will happily bully them.
No, but like, if you're not a nerd in this scenario, what are you?
No. But I'm not a nerd that has
or
power.
Are you advocating to be bullied as well?
No. I'm advocating the bullying of the nerds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you're not a nerd then in this case.
Not compared to these people. In some instances, yes.
So then, what are you then if you're not a nerd?
I will happily be one. I will happily be the bully.
Jeremy's the bully.
Easily.
Sam in chat says, "Let's bully Jeremy."
I will happily bully any nerd that needs it.
I mean,
this is why
I don't know what to do with this.
This is why Jonathan Blow blocked me on Twitter. This is exactly because I bullied him.
I thought he was a bully though.
No, he's an anti-vaxxer.
Oh, that's right.
And therefore I bullied him and he blocked me, and that is how that works.
Elon evokes fascism in Jeremy ?
No, not fascism. Bullying.
I will tell you which group I would belong with in this scenario, and point out that I happened to look over before at the timer counting up and saw when it said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it made me very happy.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with little pleasantries in life. You want to know why that's nice? Because you didn't hurt anyone.
That's true.
Yeah.
I did bring it up on Twitter. Are you saying that nerds hurt people?
Yes. Yes, I am.
I don't like this. I don't think that's true.
What do you mean it's not true?
I mean, nerds, we've been reclaiming the word nerd since I was in high school. You know what I mean? Like, nerds have been getting better.
No. Because all nerds are now are billionaires who own companies in Silicon Valley, and all they do is destroy the world. That's all they do.
Call them nerds.
They are all nerds. Bezos is a nerd. Elon is a nerd. Gates is a nerd. Jobs was a nerd. Zuckerberg was a nerd. All the worst people in the world are all nerds.
They're all tech bros. I think we should just keep calling them tech bros.
But they're not. Some of them are broy, but they're not broy. Is the thing. They're not like.
They're not nerdy either. They're not like. They're not like.
No, they are
D&D characters and like pocket protectors and.
No, but only because they're rich. Only because they're rich. Zuckerberg has had the same shit haircut since he was in college, right? Like, like Bezos, Bezos.
So is he?
well, recently Bezos changed his look. Like recently, in terms of like 10 years ago, when he got all of his plastic surgery done, he's started taking steroids again, and he's not actually that bald. He shaves his head so he doesn't look like a nerd. Elon got all of his hair redone because people were rightfully bullying him because he was a fucking one of the worst guys, right?
I don't think that means that we should bully nerds.
I think
it means we should bully billionaires.
I think we should bully nerds so they don't become billionaires.
I'm absolutely not behind any of this.
I am.
I think Sam's right in chat. As if nerd is the commonality, not toxic masculinity.
Yeah, but
racism.
It's all part of the same thing.
No, because I'm a nerd.
No,
we are nerds, Jeremy.
Not like that.
Sitting behind me is an Xbox Series S box and an Oculus Quest. Where did that Oculus Quest came from?
Me.
You, because you bought the second one.
Yeah.
And you already own the PSVR. We own all the video game consoles. You own all of these video game art books and all these video game vinyls. We are nerds.
Nerds is a perspective, like boomer. Nerds is a perspective, right? It is coming from a place of not like
hate?
Well, like a bit like self-hate, but a self-hatred that embodies in hurting other people. That is where that comes from. Woody Allen is a nerd, right?
No.
Yes. Woody Allen is a nerd.
Yeah, but that's not why he's bad.
No, but it's the same thing.
No. I'm putting my foot down, A, in going further with this conversation during the podcast, and B, with what you're saying. You're barking up completely the wrong tree here.
Bully nerds.
No, Jeremy, tell me what you've been playing this week, you nerd.
I finished Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Oh my God, did you? Wow.
I did. I finished 2 games this weekend.
Oh my God, sorry. I'm still reeling from that borderline like culture war. Okay. Okay. Wow, cool. So for this week, where did you start from and before getting to the end?
So I did 2 things. One of them is I got all the pictures.
Okay, cool. So you saw all the memories?
I did see all the memories. I didn't realize
Which means you get a different ending.
Didn't realize that until I finished it. What is the difference between it? Is it just an additional cutscene, or is it just like...
You know, at the very end when Zelda is real for like 30 seconds and then the credits roll.
Yeah.
She says something different.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
As opposed to like... But
she talks to the memories.
Do you even remember what it's all about? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Like, we saved this place, this wonderful place. And she's like, oh, but you don't remember, do you? Something.
Yeah. Yeah, like, so that was one of the... The other thing is I bought the DLC.
Oh.
I did.
Oh, why was that?
Because I actually really wanted the line on the map.
You wanted the line on the map? It's a really cool line.
It's a really cool line. I didn't realize it was a timeline line.
Yeah.
I can do it from the beginning and I can watch That's so cool.
It's so cool,
Why don't
Jeremy?
games do that? Games have stolen games have stolen so much from Breath of the Wild. Why haven't they stolen that?
It's amazing, isn't it?
I would love that in every game. There's no game I wouldn't love that in.
It's so amazing. Also, it's like Bluetooth in the Switch. Retrospective from the first time you booted it up, well before the DLC was even announced. If you buy that, you get it.
How fucking cool, right?
So cool.
I didn't actually do any of the DLC missions. I started one and then I was like, oh, this is gonna take a while.
It's hours of content.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't actually know if I've got this in me right now. And so I did some more shrines and I finished up I did Tarry Town. I thought that was really cool.
Nice. Yeah, Tarry Town's a fun... It's one of the bigger side quests.
And it actually doesn't take that long because it's just like the longest thing it takes to do is to have the initial money to start the town. And because it turns out keeping 3,000 rupees at once is actually like kind of difficult. Because I'm like, ooh.
The currency system in that game is so fascinating, isn't it? Because it's like, on the one hand, it takes forever to get rupees. And then on the other hand, you're dealing in amounts of thousands so frequently.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
So I did that. And then like the other time sink in that is just like I think all up it's about 100 logs. Because in between you getting all the villagers to join Tarry Town, you have to
like a requisition.
Yeah, you have to keep giving Hudson more and more logs. I'm like, motherfucker, I just gave you 40 logs. You want 50 now?
Yeah.
So I started.
Does he get married?
He does, and it's cute.
To the Gerudo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah, and then you have to get the other 2 like house builders,
contractors.
Yeah, like to come and like watch the wedding. Like that's the final part of the quest. It's very sweet. And Hudson's so funny because he says like oh yeah like what's next, and it's like oh like 50 logs, and oh, I don't think I should tell you this. Well, no, he says like I don't think I've told you this, but like I've actually got married, but he says it exactly like a normal conversation would.
Yeah,
he doesn't say like I've got a surprise for you. He's like we got married. Like we fell in love and got married. And I'm like, oh,
kind of thing you tell someone when you haven't seen them for a few weeks and it's happened and it's old news to you, but it is news.
But also the kind of thing you tell someone that you like that you're not that close with. Like it wasn't like, oh my god, Link is here, I'm gonna tell him my amazing news. It's like, oh, Link is here to help me on this job.
Yeah.
I'll like we're swapping stories. I'll tell him why I want this next thing.
Like they're like colleagues.
Yeah.
Or they're like
they're co-workers.
They're the same field and they like respect each other.
Yeah. It's he's
fellow
just
adventurers.
Yeah, but it's not even that. He's just a contractor. Like he's he's just a guy that I've hired, but we've just been on the same job for a long time that we've developed a rapport.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Sort of forced chumminess, enforced chumminess.
He's the electrician that has come back for a third time to fix the issue in your house that hasn't been fixed. It's like he's been here before. There's a familiarity. Yeah. And so then he's like, I need you to try and find a wedding, someone who can officiate a wedding. And 50 logs. I'm like, okay. But yeah, that was all. That was very sweet. That's fun. It's cool that the Goron could bring his kid. That was neat. And it was also fun because everybody along that quest line that you build up this town, they all are a little bit displaced or a little bit like they're looking for like another meaning or another purpose in their life.
Oh yeah, or they're a little bit like disenfranchised with where they've been.
Yeah, they're all looking for their next little adventure. And they find it by moving to a new town and building up a little community, which is very sweet. So I then went back to the Korok Forest, and I put the sword back in the thing. And I stopped
for the master trials.
For the master trials, I was like, "Ooh, this is cool." And so I got through the first chunk of trials pretty easy. At this point, my aiming with the bow and arrow is pretty good. I was like, this will be fine. And then I got through the second chunk of trials. I'm like, "Ooh, like this is getting a little bit tricky now." And then I died because I accidentally blew myself up with a bomb. I was like,
okay. Had you saved? Did you lose progress or?
Didn't know that it wasn't going to put me straight back where I was, or even in Korok Village. Didn't know that it wasn't going to put me there at all.
Wait, so what happened?
It put me back maybe 45 minutes.
Oh my god.
Maybe an hour.
Oh no.
I didn't know that it wasn't saving my save. I didn't know that
why would it not be? I guess it just doesn't save in the trial.
It doesn't save
enough time outside.
Well,
it doesn't critically awful.
It doesn't save in the trial at all. You have to do the trial from start to finish.
You'd think it would save when you exit the trial though.
Well, I didn't exit. Well, I didn't exit the trial.
When you finish it though, it should save that you did that.
I didn't finish the trial.
No, but you did the first and second sections, right?
I got to the end of the second section and I died.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think I see what you mean. Because I'm pretty sure you can you finish it and then you go back in. I'm pretty sure is a thing.
Right. Because
I thought you were saying you'd finished it and then you went back.
No. I was getting close to finishing the second part of it.
I thought you were telling me you'd lost critical progress.
No. I died in the trial and it then put me back even further away than where I was prior to. And it was also annoying because I didn't have full health when I entered the trial because I assumed they would give me full health, but they don't.
That's weird.
It's one of those Breath of the Wild things where they just don't do that little bit for you, which in some instances is just annoying that they don't. And realistically,
this it should.
Yeah, it should, right? I'm not saying you need to do that for every shrine, but come on.
Yeah. I remember that those trials, they are a slog. They're a long run up.
Yeah,
I fail it. You gotta go again.
I died and then I was on the other side of the world because I was just before I was when I traveled to the Korok town. And I was like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't do it. And I'm like,
there were multiple times where I failed and I'm like, man, I'm gonna do something else.
Yeah, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just go kill Ganon.
Yeah.
So I stocked up on a bunch of food and got my master sword. Oh, and then that was the other thing. I accidentally stumbled upon the basement of the castle.
Yeah. Tell me more about that.
I killed the Hinox skeleton.
Yeah, in the cage.
Very easily. Hinoxes are not hard to kill at all.
No.
And so I just span around 40 times and killed it. And I got the Legend of Zelda shield.
the Hylian shield.
So I had that.
So easy to miss in that game.
Yeah. I know there's another way you can get it as well. I think you can get it from a shopkeeper or something.
Yeah, I think that is one of two though.
Yeah. Well, no, you can get it back from someone in Tarrytown as well. Okay. So you can always, like, that is one of the few items you will always be able to get back, even if it breaks. Other ones being like story critical items. If you like break certain weapons, then you can get them back. But yeah, I then was like, all right, I got the Master Sword. I've got the Hylian shield. Like, let's just do it. Let's just do it. So I went in there.
The music's playing.
The music is good. All of my friends shot their I am firing my laser fucking lasers from that YouTube video from like 80 years ago. At the castle, and took Ganon's health down to half. To which my immediate reaction was, hope there wasn't a first phase I was supposed to learn. Because I was like, oh no. Part of me was like, oh, like what? If the second phase is harder than the first, and I've skipped the first phase, am I going to know how to do this?
It's funny. I remember doing that as well and being like, yes, cool cutscene, and then like, oh man, this is going to be over really quickly. This isn't going to be much of a challenge.
It was weird. It's a weird thing to do.
Because you also have to remember that if you don't fight if you don't do the Divine Beasts, if you don't defeat the Blights as the final bosses of each of those, you fight them before the Ganon fight.
Oh, do you?
So yeah, you do. If you go straight there, you have to fight all 4 Blights, and then Ganon has full health. So like, it's one thing to to damage Ganon's health bar. It's another thing to remove an entire like bunch of sub boss fights as well. So it becomes like multiplicatively easier the more bosses you take down.
Yeah, the Hyrule Castle is weird because there's like I was expecting mini bosses, and there are mini bosses, but I was expecting like gated off areas by mini bosses, and there kind of isn't.
There are
there?
So if you walk up the path, if you walk up through the front gate through the path, you'll enter like little gatehouses, and they spawn Lionels in there. And that happens like 2 or 3 times.
Okay, because I did about 2 of them, I think.
Yes, but that is that.
Okay, right.
The whole deal with Hyrule Castle is that there's like 7 different approaches to reach the throne room. That's its whole shtick. Yeah. Like you can, with Zora armor, you can ride up the waterfalls and basically get right there. You can walk up the main path. You can just climb. You can find that hidden entrance in the bottom you just found. Yeah. Around one of the lakes, there's like a dock with like a shrine in there or a teleport pad or something, and that takes you through the kitchen, and then you can go all throughout the interior of the building. Like it's quite an intricately made little mountain, but yeah, no one path is the one path.
Yeah,
because of that.
Yeah.
I know that because before I defeated Ganon,
you went everywhere.
I did all of the castle.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, and then I killed Ganon, and then I got on my horse and I did it again.
Yeah. It's good. It's a good final set piece. Like, it's brief, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's not difficult, really. The Ganon fight is also not really that hard. I found some of the Divine Beast bosses a bit harder. And it's not like I really...
lightning one.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm like, oh, I really wish it was harder. I just wish it was a bit more... I wish it was a bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
He kind of hangs out, and there's also weird, like, I expected there to be a bit more, like, maybe climb on him and maybe sort of whittle him apart or something.
Right.
Because
he was so big.
Because he was so big, and also because of the, because when he shoots fire out, the ground gets lit on fire, and it creates gusts of air as fire does.
Draft, yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to use this and get on his head. No. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
It's a
All
good point
right.
because you can jump on the Lionel's backs and like
Yeah.
stab them a bunch of times. That would be a good point if you could like grab onto his big, because he's got like a mane, doesn't he? He's got like a bunch of hair on his head.
Yeah.
If you could like grab his head and just like hit him in the skull.
And on top of that, he's also got additional guardian legs that
Yep.
when you fight the guardians, you can destroy those legs.
Yep.
And you don't do that with Ganon.
Yeah, he's very Guardian-esque, isn't he? Because he's got like a Guardian cannon.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah, you can't take out his can. You can't like. I wanted to disassemble him. I think is the thing. Like I love it when I love boss fights where you sort of slowly, piece by piece, systematically take them apart, and then they get desperate and they get angry and they get vicious and they get faster and their other parts maybe get more abilities, or they take off a destroyed part of the thing and they fuse it with something else or something, and they become like a unique staged thing. Whereas he was just kind of like he gained like an invincibility armor, and then it kind of like that was it.
Jeremy, you said that, and immediately to mind flooded a bunch of Skyward Sword bosses and other Zelda bosses. I was like,
right.
oh yeah, that's what a Zelda boss is like.
Yeah, right. Like, and I was just like, I don't know, this not a great boss for like maybe what is like actually like a really good game. Like it was, and look,
it's the like nth degree conclusion of the where is our traditional Zelda design critique.
Yeah, I guess like
In a way.
Yeah. And look, I've never been a massive fan of Ganondorf. I'm a big Ganon man myself. And so I always wanted more of that. And then we got a funny like Shadow of the Colossus-esque fight where you're just like shooting arrows at the glowing points on him, and like that, like it looked neat. It didn't really do much for me, but like like as a screenshot, looked pretty good.
Yeah, it's like, oh, the bow of light. Oh, run around. Whoa, these are big lasers. Whoa, I win.
Yeah. And that was it. And then they totally make you believe that you're going to be able to play a Zelda, and they just do not give you that. They totally like not allude, but they totally frame it in a way of like, and Zelda's playable.
Really? I didn't get that impression at all.
Oh, I totally got that from the conversations you have with Zelda, and Zelda in her like armor again. And the moment of like her going like, well, we got to go to Zora's domain because like that's the next thing that we got to do. But there's still plenty of things that we can do in Hyrule. And I fully expected it to be like, and now you play as Luigi. Like I fully just was like, and like I know that's not the case, but I remember hearing that at the time, going like, oh no, people thought that. And then I'm watching this cutscene where Zelda's like, come on, Link, we gotta go like fix up Hyrule. We gotta like make it like, I was gonna say make it great again. We gotta like, we gotta put
It's been 100 years.
Yeah, like we gotta get back to work. And she's in her garb that matches your garb in like a playable part of Hyrule.
And she's also like doing the bit of, because you go through all those, she's got a fascinating story in this game.
Yeah.
Of this like this chosen one who couldn't rise up to be, but who's actually quite a good leader in her own like skills and merits, and like can do the like people work. And so she's done her divine duty. She pulled it out. She figured it out. And she's like, great, let me get back to the bit I'm really good at. Let me lead the people.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we're going to play as her in the new one, which is a shame.
I don't think we are either, which breaks my heart.
Yeah. I also don't know where she is in the new one.
Yeah.
She kidnapped again.
Is she dead?
She dead.
It'll be, I hope she has some role. Like, even I would not overall be happy with this. I would rather she was just a proper, fully playable character. But even if they give us like an Ashley moment, like we were talking about before, like something.
I hope they're doing the Ellie Abby thing where like that we're only showing you the Ellie side, but you actually play as Abby for half the fucking game.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, it like I think it ended fine. Like it's a very like neat ending, as it always is in Zelda.
Yeah.
For the most part.
It's very, very brief.
Yeah, the ending is really quick.
Like, she kind of like lands down on the ground and she's like, nice work, Link.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for playing my game.
Chris Pratt? Is that you?
Yeah, but I finished it, which is the most important thing. Is that like I got to the credits.
Yeah,
And I got to the
Jeremy.
credits a month and a half away from the new one.
Oh, fucking Jeremy, not even. It's like it's a month and 2 days from today. When this podcast comes out on live feeds, it will be a month exactly.
Yeah.
Are you ready? Because I'm not.
I am now.
I guess so. So I have 2 questions for you.
Yes.
One of them, are you concerned that you might have cut it a little too close to Tears of the Kingdom, that you might get a little burned out?
I don't think so. I think I've got a month to vibe out doing other stuff. And I also it wasn't a long play session. Like I remember I downloaded the DLC and I saw all the new quests and I sat through 5 minutes of Link as it was giving me more and more quests. And it kept on then like, hey, the quest received, and then it was Link. Link. And it reminded me of Bruce from like fucking
The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, what's her name? Liv Tyler. Where all she does in that movie is say Bruce's name.
Yeah,
it was like getting more and more, like getting more and more content, and I was like, and I was like, I wonder, like, can I get the motorbike? And I'm like, no, let's just go. Like, let's get to the end of this.
I will say it's hard. I honestly don't think I can, with Tears of the Kingdom coming out. If this weren't like a sequel lead in, I might say something different. I would rather, if this weren't a sequel lead in, I would say find the specific shrines. There's like 3 in like each area you need to do. And that unlocks the like final, they call it Divine Beast. It's not a Divine Beast, but it's the best dungeon in the game.
Yeah, the dungeon. Yeah. Yeah. And like, look, I can always go back and just do that thing.
Yeah. The problem is it takes finding the shrines, which is like 12 different, like look at the map puzzles and figure it out. Although you like those.
Yeah, I enjoyed those. I enjoyed doing those for all but one of the actual ones that they gave me.
Yeah. And then there's shrines. So that's cool as well. So yeah, if you do feel like it, I would, if you were going to engage with any of the DLC in the next month, I would do those 12 shrines and get to that dungeon, because that's the best one.
The reason I beat the game now is because I have gone to start Metroid Prime about 4 times.
Yeah.
And I couldn't take Zelda out of my Switch until I finished it because of how close I was to the end.
That's a good commitment to yourself to make.
And I was like, I could beat this. I could start this game now, but then I'm swapping games out of the same console when realistically I should just finish this one and then just.
And like you don't want to take that much time away from Metroid, because you will. If you do take too much time, you will forget the one ice beam door in that location that you need to go back to. That is the way forward.
It's one of the things that I've thought about Metroid Dread being like, it's going to be way harder to go back to it. Part of my brain is like, well, if I go back to Metroid Dread, do I just restart it and get to where I was?
How far through were you?
Half, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It might be worth persevering and figuring it out, but you might spend an hour chasing your tail. Yeah,
and also getting around locations in Metroid Dread is not quick. It takes a while to get from point A to point B. So it might be easier to restart the game, get to where I was at faster than how long it took me to get there in the first place. It's not going to be faster to re-wrap my head around where I'm at, but it'll probably be more enjoyable to go through the front half of that game again, and I'll be there faster than I was originally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky. So my second question is, are you glad you went back? And secondarily, are you glad you finished it?
Look, I actually think finishing the game doesn't really mean anything to me. Like I got to the credits and like neat, but like I don't like when I think about that game.
It's not. Yeah,
I'm not going to be thinking about like, I got to the end.
Yeah.
Mostly because the fight wasn't that difficult. Like I didn't die in at all when fighting Ganon, and I wasn't ridiculously overpowered. I had 1 heart that was on the next line. Like that's how much health I had.
Yeah, I was maxed out.
Yeah, but fighting Ganon was the last thing you did, right?
More or less, yeah.
And like, you know, like I had the weapons I needed. And like, look, I was also confident going into the fight because I'm like, yeah, like I'm good at this game now. I'll just like I'll wing it. How hard could it be?
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, like
so then going back to the game in general, like
Yes.
having done this whole thing, and like I know you've appreciated it more than you had before, but
yeah,
coming to the end of it now, do you have any reflection on that?
yeah,
Revisit.
it is very easy to see why the rest of the RPG space has decided to say we should start making games like this.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really have come to realize about that game was how much of a fondness I have for walking in that game.
Yeah.
I barely used a horse. Like genuinely, I think I can probably count on one hand how many times I got on a horse.
Mm-hmm.
One, because I don't think they control that great, but also two, because I think that like part of that game is appreciating that world. You know, the getting off the beaten track, all that stuff, exploring different little nooks and crannies and being rewarded for it. But also the ability to think back on that world that I have walked through and go like, fuck, like I walked all the way there, huh? Like, you know, like, because you look at all of the big landmarks, the 4 divine beasts being some of the most obvious, especially after they are all firing. Tall mountains, you know, the Temple of Time, all that stuff, right? All of the places that you would say are points of interest in the game. And then thinking about it and going like, yeah, I didn't just walk around those areas, like I walked there.
Yeah.
Is really quite special.
You also it helps you really develop, like they built the world in a way that's quite good for this as well, but it helps you develop quite the memory of each place. Like each place has quite a distinctive identity just from the landscape and the way it is in the world.
Yeah, and it's kind of not unlike a Pokemon game in that regard. Like where like when you walk all over the map in a Pokemon game, like you sort of learn, like, you know, I won't be able to tell you which route is any route, but when I get onto a route, I'll know roughly where to go when I get on there because I just have played that route before.
Yeah, and like roughly which Pokemon you might find.
Yeah. And you know, like remembering what it was like to walk, like to go on the route in Pokemon that's below the highway, for example, right? Or like get to a town that I like because you're walking around in Pokemon, and because you can't fast travel to locations that you haven't been to before, you understand why point A leads into point B. And Breath of the Wild is full of that, right? It is completely full of like, oh, I understand how I got there. It is, if I wanted to get to the top of this mountain, I'd probably have to go through this area, and I might want to go through this area, and then I'll walk all the way over there, and then I'll walk over there all the way over there. And there's a reason to continuously do that. You know, you can fast travel around fucking plenty of locations in Breath of the Wild, but you still have a reason to walk there. And I will find myself stumbling upon shrines that I've already been to because I enjoyed the actual traversing in the game.
Yeah, that's cool.
And even if like, say before I had that that line on the map telling me where I've gone, what I would often do is I'd try and like look around for shrines and be like, okay, if I was a shrine, where would I be? And I would look at a location that I've only very rarely been through, and I'm like, okay, like let's look at this location. Where is one probably?
Yeah. And
I'll try and make my way around there, and I'll stumble upon one that I've already got. Maybe the one I've only got in this region. I'll be like, of course there's one here. like of course, of course there's one here.
Yeah.
I knew it was there.
Yeah.
And then from there, I'll then spin out another structure in my spider web and be like, well, maybe there's one over here, and I'll follow this river, and I'll go over this mountain, and I'll go through this cave, and I'll go through this little bokoblin fort.
Yeah.
And I'll come out of it somewhere else that I've already been. Be like, oh, okay, these locations.
You didn't find a shrine, but
no, but I then suddenly was able to place myself again without having to look at the map. I was like, oh, okay. Then if I want to go back here, I can go here. It's really, really good at that because it forces you to engage with the language of the world, and that language is really well, like it's there's a really strong sense of there's a really strong sense of place in all of the places.
100%.
Which is so hard to emulate.
Yeah. And it's the kind of thing that like you don't see in Legends Arceus, for example.
Yeah.
Like it's evoking the Breath of the Wild art style, but the world isn't generated with that same level of care. It evokes similarities to the world that you might have seen in the Gen 4 games with the lakes and the location names. And it honors what it's meant to be vaguely. But
there's no purpose.
Exactly. The way the terrain is generated is far less unique and purposeful compared to, like I will recognize certain hills in Breath of the Wild, like as well as ruins and villages and waterfalls and like, oh, this crevasse here, this is where I met the red dragon for the first time. And I know there's also a shrine over here that you unlock with like a shadow puzzle, like, or maybe that one was the lightning one actually. And if I go to the north, south, east from here, I'll find that mushroomy plains area, like that's right near and on the other side of the like there is such an identity to the Breath of the Wild Hyrule. It's very impressive.
And on top of that as well, they also they force you to engage with the actual, like, the character that is the land that you are walking through, right? It is like the way you mark stuff on the map is you look around with your eyes and you drop a marker over there and say like, I'm going to head over there. And then, you've got these tall towers that you can survey across, and it is not about looking at where I want to, like, it is about finding something that is interesting over there and then just making your way over there. It is about leaving the little stamps on the map and coming back to a stamp and go like, why did I initially leave this here? And I was like, oh, because there's a fucking Lionel here, or because there's a Korok puzzle that I couldn't quite figure out, but I want to come back to it, right? And it's everything is placed and cared for in a way that allows you to be allows you to have those quiet moments to think about why things are that way. Where like not a lot of games like Breath of the Wild, or not a lot of open world games also like do. Like, have you ever played a Far Cry game and went, I understand why there's a fort here? It's like, no, like there's a fort here.
It just is there because they want 17 in this region and they're equidistant and that's how it works.
Yes. Yeah. Assassin's Creed, the later ones are a little bit different because they are more based on like actual locations, because they just decided to, what if we just wholesale copy pasted countries into these games? But there's also,
honestly, not a bad way to do it.
Not a bad way. And I think honestly probably better than some of the later ones prior, which was like a little bit more like we're just going to jam in a whole lot of stuff. Like, it's not going to really have any rhyme or reason, but you're going to be able to explore what looks like Florence, and that's cool enough. This is welcome to the me part of this. The other game that I think does what Breath of the Wild does really well is Death Stranding, where I actually like have like a really strong sense of that world, and being able to walk through everything felt really purposely put there.
And you can recall what you did in that section when you lost that package, or when you built that bridge, or when you made your trek with that vehicle.
The world in Death Stranding is fucking big, and it feels way bigger than it does in Breath of the Wild, mostly because you are smaller in Death Stranding, and you don't have nearly as much ability to climb or glide or fly, right?
Yeah. Hyrule is definitely accessible.
Yes, to you, yeah. But like, I can in my brain draw a line across the entire first chapter of Death Stranding.
That's because you played it 3 times.
I never finished it 3 times. I got halfway through the first chapter like twice. The third time I got there and I got through it, like I can draw that whole line and all the way through into that like that third open world area. Like I can see that line in my brain. The strands, if you will. They do that really well. It's kind of like the first time you chart a world in Outer Wilds. Right, like you get it.
Right, yes.
Like you start to put together, and then when those mazes open up to another maze that you've been to, but you didn't know that those 2 mazes connect, and you're like, fuck. Like Brutal Hollow does that a lot. As do the Ash Twins. Like there's like fucking if I come out here, I can be there.
I've been here. If I get here at the start of the cycle, then I'll be able to go down there next time. Yeah. Exploration games, man.
Yeah, but also like quiet exploration games specifically. Ones that allow you to do that.
Yeah.
You know, because you have to have a sense of trust in the player.
Yes.
But you also need to have a sense of trust in your own direction and design that they won't just
mechanics.
Yeah, that the player will not be put off by this, or will figure out the answer.
I've been playing Horizon Forbidden West this week, a good bit. I've done 2 or 3 big main missions this week, just sort of mainlining it. Getting close to the end, PlayStation has added this new progression percentage thing down the bottom. I don't know if you noticed that. And the game says I'm like 70% of the way through the game. So like, oh, okay, cool.
I actually don't know the last time I turned on my PlayStation.
Right, because that's not the Zelda or Resident Evil machine.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that. And I've been thinking as I've been mainlining it as opposed to what I did, which got me not finishing fucking Zero Dawn, which was playing it like Breath of the Wild, because I played Breath of the Wild first before playing Horizon, which was, I'm in this world, let me walk around and find all the things. And you kind of walk around and there's so much to do, but also nothing to do in Horizon. It's like, that you could discover the bristleback site over there, or the claw strider site over there, or the charger site over there. It's like, yeah, you could, but it doesn't do literally anything for you.
Yeah.
So then it becomes, all right, well, maybe zoom out a bit. Maybe you want to go to all the campfires. And it's like, well, that also doesn't get anything for you except more convenient fast travel. Like you don't get a resource like you do in Breath of the Wild when you find a shrine. You just find a new fast travel location. So then it's like, okay, well, then let's zoom out a bit more, I guess. And
do you get a resource?
What else do I really need to do here? So I just feel like there's no point in me running around. There's also no point in me running around without a mount, because if I walk, the only reward I get is just, well, it's very pretty, but also like it just takes longer to do everything. I don't get rewarded by being able to notice that, that one small thing over there that I would have missed, because it's all on my little compass radar anyway, whatever's noteworthy.
Yep.
Like it's just time to go forward to the thing. And if you get distracted, then great. And if that burns you out, then that's more of a design thing. But like Horizon is not an exploration game.
No, and I think it is also, again, too busy. I think that the second one does a much better job at, like, there probably would be a camp here, or like there's a reason that this town has got a culture in the way that it does, and it is because the resources that are next to it are at least related to what they could have interpreted as God or whatever, right? Like, and I think they do some of that stuff well.
For sure.
But yeah, you're not discovering anything in that game. No, despite it being the Forbidden West, it's funny, like you get there and it's immediately like, well, here's the new clan who you didn't know before, and they know everything about this area. Yeah. The one time in that game I think that you do some genuine discovery is when you go into Vegas and you go into that whole underground section.
Especially because when you're underwater, you have no combat and you have to stealth. There is a decent amount of that. I thought that was an interesting wrinkle.
Yeah, and then like there's a chunk after that which is a bit more optional. which allows you to do a lot more exploring and understanding. But again, you are exploring like structures.
Yeah. And not points of interest.
Yeah. Like you are in a space. Like you are in
Yeah.
an enclosed area to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, we are getting a sequel to Breath of the Wild in a month.
I am getting even more worried about it.
I'm not getting more worried about it. I mean, last week was the week where we looked at the trailer after the stream, right? Or after the episode. Yeah, like we spoke about it in that like
more worried in terms of I thought about it more.
Oh, okay. All right.
The upstairs area, the
floating islands. Sky Islands, they called them, not Skylands.
Is that going to have the issue that we just spoke about?
What, where each one is kind of forgettable and
well, like it's like
disjointed,
a bit more. Why is this put here? It's
just a point of interest.
It's floating. It's kind of what's the word? It is purpose agnostic, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, it will have a different purpose, right? It will serve a purpose that you cannot find on the
I'm not talking
on the ground floor, but like,
yeah, but I mean, as in terms of the language of the world.
I mean, if anyone's going to do it, they will. And like, you know, I can think of interesting areas in that demo already. You know, there's that cave that goes up that you can go through and it goes to like a snowy area, or there's that like little bay that they make the boat go across to the other enemy camp. Like that's interesting. That's interesting, well designed.
But the why?
The why?
Why is it? Why is it where it is?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
they have a massive hill to climb.
Yeah, they do.
To not only like catch that lightning in a bottle, but also to honor what came before by literally including the same Hyrule map in the game. Not make it boring, so they've got to change it up. But also bring in something new so that people aren't just like, oh, it's just the same area again. Like I tried to go back to Breath of the Wild, and I just don't enjoy it as much because I'm exploring areas I've already explored. And it turns out that was one of my greatest joys of that game. It wasn't necessarily the combat or the shrine puzzles. They're okay. They're fine. They're good. But that wasn't what I wanted to enjoy. When I go back, I can't have that sense of discovery again because they made everything so memorable with how I explored it. So how they replicate that feeling with the same map is going to be very fascinating. If they can.
Yeah.
It does seem like too tall an order at times, doesn't it?
A bit, yeah. We'll see how they go. I think it's going to be hardest, most of all, to like critically analyze it.
What, is in like separate to Breath of the Wild, or like including where it's come from, or
yeah, all of that. Like how is anyone? I mean, you know, like obviously you do your job, but like how are you going to be like, oh, they made another one?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I hope it works. Obviously, I hope every game succeeds in what it tries to do, but I want that for me as well, selfishly. There's not many times where I'm like, oh man, I hope they make me feel the way I want them to. Like, there's not many times where I let the hype get me, I guess.
Are you going to be able to? I'm just looking at my diary at the moment. You're going to be able to do that game.
10, don't even talk to me about the next 2 months. No, dude, actually, but
10 days after Redfall.
10 days after Red. I'll be happy to jump off Redfall, I reckon. I don't think it'll keep me for long. It's an Arcane game. No offense, Arcane. I just don't stick with them. But yeah, what is it? We've got the Horizon DLC this month. Star Wars is coming.
Oh, it's the Horizon DLC this month.
Yeah, sure is. It's in 1 or 2 weeks.
Because Star Wars is just under 2 weeks before Zelda.
Dead Island must be next week then.
Dead Island is next Friday. Yes. Because we're the 10th at the moment. Dead Island 2 is the 21st. Minecraft Legend is the 18th.
Okay.
Star Wars Jedi Survivor is the 28th.
Horizon.
And then Zelda is the
Burning
12th.
Shores.
What's annoying for me is Star Wars comes
19th,
out.
19th for Horizon.
Right. Star Wars comes out the 28th, which is also DreamHack, which is going to be like a real killer.
Oof. Yeah, that's hard.
Because DreamHack is 3 days, and Star Wars comes out the 28th, which is the first of the 3 days, which is like really annoying. I mean, not annoying, but just like, yeah. So I don't know how much I'm going to be able to play. I'll see how I go.
And then after that, there's more stuff in May, and then there's Street Fighter 6.
Yeah, I've got that in here as well. Street Fighter 6
in June.
Yeah.
3 days before Diablo, I think.
Something like that, yeah. And then Final Fantasy 16 at the end of June.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
We'll have something announced in between then and then. And then maybe something small and fun.
Pikmin 4
that like grabs people. There's room. Well, I was going to say there's room in May, but people might just stay clear of Zelda. Pardon me. But there's room in June as well.
I reckon we'll see Silksong around then.
Silksong, that'd be a good hit.
I still think it'll
hit.
shadow drop.
That would be a really good hit for people who don't want an action RPG like Diablo or a fighting game like Street Fighter. If they put that dab smack in the middle of June, that'd be cool.
Fuck, that Street Fighter looks good.
It does look good.
Fuck, I'm like, oh.
I told someone in the Discord today, it's like, oh man, I'm scared of Street Fighter. If someone asks me to work on that, I might lose my job because of how bad at those games I am.
Oh, I'm really excited for it.
I thought you might be, because I was remembering how into Mortal Kombat you were when 11 came out. Even just giving it a go, like happy just like dabbling. Street Fighter is definitely looking like a fun one to dabble in.
Yeah, I played it at PAX last year, and I'm like, oh, like I don't.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and I was like, I don't even go here, but like I know this is good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
yeah. I'm fascinated how these simple controls work, because like I find the the quarter circles and all of that precision joystick movement a bit finicky. But yeah. We are like way long. But I just need to externalize this somewhere. Okay. And I'll be brief.
I know what this is.
On yesterday morning, got up to help Sam with the cats. We're dealing with some new cats in the house because of extenuous circumstances. And it was nice. We were having pats and whatever, and Sam was doing some of the trays, and I was making sure they were warm and whatever. I brought my 3DS with me in case I got stuck, right? And I've been playing a lot more Platinum this week. And I've had a lot of days off this week. So I've had a really good time with Platinum. And I put it in my jacket pocket, sat on the thing and sat there for ages. And when I stood up, my 3DS fell out of my jacket pocket and I watched it hit the ground, bounce, carpet, and then land what ended up being battery side first into these cats' water bowls. And I pull it out and I start drying it on like the sheets of the bed. And I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck? And I turn it off as fast as I can and I unscrew it and I find the battery was the side that went in and I undo it and I put it in rice. And then my friend Ollie is like, hey, that's useless. I was like, oh shit.
So what I will say, it going in battery side first, probably a better thing.
Well,
the battery being underwater is
better
not
than
the
it
issue.
Going into like the side with the processor and the
that's the thing. You don't batteries can be underwater. It's you don't want a short.
That's the thing. The thing that gets me is that it was running. So I turned it off as fast as I could, but like basically nothing's broken, but the whole thing, right? I've got this repair kit. And so I was just saying to myself, it's fine. I can crack this thing open. As soon as I get it open, I can dry it all out and then it won't corrode and I'll put it back together and it'll all be fine. There are 8 screws on the bottom of this thing, and 2 of them have stripped under my screwdrivers. And one of them I didn't realize this was happening until it was too late. And I was like, oh shit, where I'm in this spot again. But then the other one, I knew the possibility might be there, and it's still stripped under my screwdriver. I'm absolutely fucking livid that those screws did this. And I'm so upset. This like 3DS that's had new life for me that I've spent dozens of hours with over the last few weeks, and now I'm petrified to turn it on because I don't want there to be an error. Every time I like pry the case open a little bit, because I've got some screws out, but not all of them, a little bit more water falls out of the A, B, X, and Y buttons. I'm like, fuck. I can't turn this thing on. But
you gotta wait.
I know. So what I ended up doing, I've got a Tupperware container that had like a rubber seal around it, and I fished out as many desiccant silica gel packages I could from spare boxes of tech that I own. I keep my boxes, bunch of Turtle Beach headphones that I don't use anymore because they all broke. They had 2 packs each in them. They were great. These headphones, these had a pack of silica gel in them in their box. So they're in an airtight container with the silica gel. I'm leaving them be. The plan is to maybe get a rotary tool, like a Dremel, and cut a cross line through the screw so that it's a bigger flathead opening, and try and get it with a bit more purchase.
I did
try your rubber band trick, and it didn't work many times.
I would recommend actually screwing the screw until
like breaking the screw
until you get all the way through it.
Yeah, because
that is at least
basically what's next.
Yeah, because like a Dremel is like a little bit scarier.
Yeah, it's a bit like if I slip, then I like break the whole case. Yeah,
you know where a screw is. You know a screw is screwing into a place where a screw belongs. You're not going to accidentally fuck something else up.
Yeah. So yeah, there's no point here. It's just I've been very sad about this the last couple of days.
There is another option that is a bit harder to get going.
Okay.
But if you manage to glue.
Yeah, Sam mentioned this as well. Like if you get like a good piece of wood or metal or something and glue it onto the screw, and then you screw the super glued piece that you can reach out and it pulls the screw with it, I could try that. The problem with that is if I accidentally glue it to the chassis, then it's stuck there. It might break the chassis.
Well, no, because super glue is very easy, because you can just get like dissolvents for glue. You can you can just get like the.
The problem is because this is a 3DS, these screws are minuscule and the areas around them are minuscule. There's just not that much room for fine control, which is again another maybe hair-raising thought when you include the idea of a rotary tool or a drill.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a very disappointing couple of days.
Yeah. And
we're having all this neighborhood cat trouble with like a family next door of cats that we just discovered, and so we need to get rid of them. Like not like kill, like with trap and take them to the shelter, but like
yeah.
I was like, we were like stressed about that from the previous night, and I was like, man, I just want to play Pokemon all day and like chill out. And instead, I just failed to fix my 3DS all day instead. So frustrating. So upsetting.
Yeah, that's not fun at all.
No, not really. So that's my brief little interlude. We're gonna go now because it's been nearly 2.5 hours. Jeremy, what the hell were we doing tonight?
I spoke a lot about Star Wars.
We did speak a lot about Star Wars. This just would have been a 2-hour podcast without our 20 minutes of Star Wars at the front.
Yeah.
Well, if you made it all the way to the end, or even if you just listened to a single part of it, thank you so much for listening, everybody. This has been a good show, I reckon. This has been one of my favorites. This has been a good one in a while. It's nice when we just have a topic we can talk on. I like talking about games, you know?
Good.
Turns out this is a podcast about video games. Yeah, make sure to listen to next week's episode where we are going to be doing another one of our retrospective Game of the Year lists. We're going to be looking at the year 2015, 8 years ago. A year that when it came to some outlets, not many, but some outlets just decided to not give a Game of the Year because there were so many top contenders for that year. Or like maybe there was a lot of draws in the second and third place podium. 2015 is a big year. So look forward to that for next week. Best way to make sure you don't miss that episode is to follow all of our socials. For MiniMap, that is at MiniMapAU. You can find both of us individually on Twitter as well. Jeremy, where can they find you?
At Obi-Wan Chairs.
You can find me at KJPalmer_24. You can also find the MiniMap Discord on our website. There's a Discord logo at the top of the page that takes you there. You get going live notifications there. If you want to know when we go live next week, you can also head to that website for everything else Minimap related, including the Mini Disc podcast, the latest articles that we've been writing. For those of you live with us on Twitch, stick around. We're about to start the post show. I'd wager it might be a little shorter than normal just because we've gone quite long, but we'll still be here. And for those of you listening later, make sure to give us those oh so tasty 5-star ratings. It helps us out a lot. Consider joining us next week if you're around. And lastly, you can also support us on Patreon if you want to help keep the lights and mics on. You can do that by heading on over to patreon.com/minimapau, and for $5 Australian, which is probably not worth very much at the moment, you will get 25 hours of early access, 24 hours of early access for all episodes of the MiniMapCast, as well as some more benefits, all while helping us out greatly. But yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next week. I have no idea what we'll be playing, but we'll be back then. Have a good week.
I have no idea either.